Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a show about weirdos, doggone it. My name is John Boy. It is John Boy time. I am John Francis Fahey. I am your host. This is the show about weirdos. It is called Profiles in Eccentricity. Joining me as ever, thinker, stinker, pee-pee drinker, hypervert, high-functioning pervert, Michelangelo's David Duchovny, Aaron Joseph Pita.
Pervert parking only.
Yeah. Sorry. Whoops.
Sorry. That's me. That's me.
8 to 10. For parking only.
2 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
AM.
That's right. We didn't even go to sleep last night.
To your right, my left, Aaron. Handsome Matt Brousseau, the Frenchman henchman.
Hi.
How you doing, buddy?
Yes, I'm good. Aaron, yes, agreed.
Good.
We've had, of course, one of the joys of our lives.
What?
Doing this program.
Yes.
We've had the recent phenomenon of the people calling the Tiki Adult Theater.
That's right.
Getting shirts with 5 references to the Tiki Adult Theater. That has made me so happy. Once again, people have surpassed that. It's been amazing. People have fallen short of that and still gotten shirts because, God damn it, that's just what you deserve.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing. Once again, folks, if you call the Tiki Adult Theater, don't harass them. Don't be rude.
Don't harangue them.
Don't harangue them. But if you get 5 references to the Profiles in Eccentricity program into the phone call and send us audio or a video of you doing it, whatever, we don't care. We will send you a T-shirt because you deserve it. But a longtime lifer listener, Austin, and his blushing bride, Rose, actually came to Los Angeles.
That's right.
And they went to the Tiki Adult Theater. And they were willing to talk about it over the phone.
That's right.
And we just talked to them, and we recorded it separately. But it was so much fun, and you are going to hear right now the abridged version of the phone call, the greatest hits, just the stuff you really need to know. And this is a couple made aware of the Tiki Adult Theater in Los Angeles by this program, going to it.
And said, babe.
Brave as hell. And they had a good old time here. Just like Kenny J said. They had a good old day here. And
2 TVs.
What was on the seats did not disappoint.
Yes.
Oh.
So Rose and Austin at the Tiki Adult Theater, our conversation with them about it. Check us out one time like this.
Hit it.
Say that again? No?
You just want to come back?
Yeah, I'm going to come back.
All right.
Do it?
Yeah.
Don't need to clap again?
No, you've done it. It's all timed up still.
And we're back.
Jesus Christ.
Now, how about those kids, huh? Those crazy kids.
The Midwest makes some good people.
Oh, it makes my prostate swell with pride.
You know what? I'm just so happy that they went for it and tried to get off.
I'm impressed. I mean,
Yeah.
That is next level.
Kind of a shame that I haven't.
I mean, that is...
perversery.
Perversery?
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
Daddy complex, huh?
It's,
Oh, you in the daddy complex now.
I got a gator complex.
You in the... We gotta say, we just put up 2 of
Gator Talk.
Dark Rose Dallas's animations on Instagram. If you're not following it, it's Profiles in Eccentricity.
I only saw one.
Gator Talk came out.
They've just been great.
Oh.
And
Gators.
we're just so happy with those.
Yeah, and if you've got an idea for what should be animated next,
Yeah, please get in touch.
let us know.
Yeah, we love suggestions.
Yeah, we love hearing about ourselves.
And I think that the next one we're considering doing is actually a Patreon clip where we talked about George W. Bush.
Oh,
And
9/11 and VR.
Oh, right.
but I'm not gonna spoil that. But
9/11 was real.
There's some real weird stuff going on Patreon. So if you want to get involved with more of our stupidity, it is $5 a month, an extra show per week, and we do extra kind of like media stuff. We do extra profiles. We do Matt Brousseau's Connections. We do Aaron Explains It All. We do I Thought This Was Funny. We do Chopped Up Jukebox. And then we just do a bunch of like loose discussion episodes where we just kind of hang out and do more of what we do like at the end of this program. So if you're into that, $5 a month or more. If you want extra swag and etc., that's your option. That's your right as a human.
That's right.
But thanks again to Rose and Austin. That was really
Thank
dope.
you. It's wonderful to hear from you.
Now,
Good to hear you.
Aaron,
John, Matt.
I think some of the things born out of this profile were from the last Patreon you said.
Yeah. So the last Patreon, we started talking about some of this, just some. So we talked about some bullshit, and we got into some pyramid stuff, and
Ancient aliens theories was the topic.
Yeah, and then I also I've had a conversation. I mentioned friend Christina's mom, and she brought up this guy, and I totally forgot about this guy.
Isn't that great?
And I said, I'm gonna
This guy.
this guy, and I was like, you know what? I can't believe I forgot about this guy because back when I was a youngster, I signed up for one of these book clubs where they deliver. It's like Columbia House for books.
Was it
that's
like
nice.
was it that school
No,
that
no,
No,
but
Columbia House
like
for
Columbia House for books.
Okay.
And one of these books I got.
100 books for a penny.
Scholastic, that's what it is.
It wasn't that. This was, it wasn't through the school. Listen, I
Okay.
don't let school get in the way of my education, Matt.
Wow.
This
Okay.
is my own independent study here.
It's true.
He wasn't.
So I was reading all sorts of weird shit about Atlantis and.
This is
God
why he's
knows
not into music. He didn't do the Columbia House
I
CD.
did do that too.
He did do that too?
Yeah. My first CD was Blackstreet, Another Level,
Nice.
and Hanson, Mbop.
Wow.
So if that doesn't tell you about me,
I do like the way you work it.
no diggity, no doubt. So the person I'm speaking about is arguably the most famous American psychic. Period. Right.
Nice.
His name is Edgar Cayce.
I do know that.
I've
name.
You know
heard
the
that-
name,
I've
right?
heard- yes, I've heard the name. I feel like it was in a song. It sounds like it's a name from a Bob Dylan song. It's just,
Maybe.
or just life.
Yeah. Or like Father John Mystic.
Yeah,
Shit like
Yeah.
that.
How much do you think him and Ed McMahon got missed up? Like two Irish guys named Ed. Are you the psychic? No, sir.
You are correct, sir.
I only know what's going on in the great one's head.
Johnny's the psychic. He's got the envelope to the forehead and the...
Yeah.
Hi. So Edgar Cayce was also known as the Sleeping Prophet.
That's a
Um,
kind
He gets so
ironic,
sleepy.
ironic
so
nickname.
sleepy. So he was
Roofied prophet. Go to sleep. Go to sleep.
Edgar Cayce was born in 1877 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
Real name?
Yeah, Edgar Cayce. That's right.
Middle name?
Dude, who cares?
Francis.
Probably some dumb shit.
Some dumb donkey shit.
Elijah or something. Whatever.
Elijah.
Who
Come on,
cares?
Casey. Were you joking with me? His name was like Timothy.
Yeah, but also he was like
1877.
very, very Christian.
1877 in Kentucky. Okay,
Like Anglo-Christian.
Yes.
Oh, really?
1877 Kentucky.
So he wasn't a Mick.
No, I don't think it.
Scotch-Irish, yeah.
Possibly
In Kentucky,
but
probably.
by lineage, possibly. But
Yeah.
he was born, and as was his father, in Kentucky. This
Okay,
area.
so-
This is also like right after Civil War.
It's all lost.
This area is famous for their dark tobacco,
Mm-hmm.
used in chew and also for pipe tobacco.
Maybe it's where they get those baseball mud from.
Yeah, they rub the balls in the mud.
Just from Jump Street, I gotta say here, also though, like, you know, the way that a lot of the culture survived there in kind of the roughest part of the country, it's where you get, you know, the things that go back to that old culture. You know, I told you about a lot of the mythology in Ireland, the fairies and the guy you can call that's a healer.
Yes,
all that
absolutely.
stuff. It pervades that culture because there's less outside influence, so it stays there longer, and you would believe
Gets entrenched.
a lot more mystical shit if you grow up in that part of the world because it's still old world in a way.
You're in the sticks.
Yeah, you're in the sticks, and you hold on to those things really, really tightly. And
Even if, like he was, deeply religious, like they were a very Christian family, but still, what you're talking about, it bubbles up. There's a whole area. There's Christian mysticism.
yes,
And this is also, as he ages, gets into that time in the United States that we've done a lot here of spiritualism, right? And Western esotericism. So there's like a confluence of factors that kind of make this the right time for him to be who he was.
Oh, I love
yes. And I just want to say again, another thing is there is like a thing where the most fervent believers, in a way, they will go to like the local priest or the whatever, and they'll be like, I have all this shit inside, and like I want to do more for God and all this stuff, and like the priest is really interested mostly in just controlling you.
Yeah. Are you going to come on Sunday?
And they go they go like, just hang tight. I'll tell you if you.
Right.
And that's like not enough
For these people.
They can't hang tight.
for those people that are such fervent believers.
Joan of Arc.
So that's where you get the extracurricular activities like that.
Yeah, you're
Makes
right
sense.
on the nose.
Yeah.
When he was...
God, I'm good at this.
Yes,
I
Aaron?
really know what I'm talking
I
about.
gave him my notes before the show. It's one of these psychic tricks.
He did not give me the notes.
No. I'm making a joke about how a lot of these psychics...
And I'm making a stand.
You know what? And you're making a stink.
And I'm making a scene.
Oh. So, you grew up on a poor kind of farmer's life, right?
Yep.
When he was 4, he watched his grandfather drown.
Oh.
He was riding like a horse, and he was taking the horse into the lake,
Water polo.
and his foot got stuck in the stirrup. The horse got spooked and just like dragged him into the lake, couldn't get out. So he watched his grandfather die.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
Um,
There's an article, just an editorial from like 1903 of the guy writing, "Horses are the dumbest fucking animals." I'll put it
Oh,
on
with their
Patreon.
chankles and their
I'll
whatnot.
put it on Patreon. It's just
That's return to that. To whom it may concern.
He really,
Horses
really
are the
is.
dumb. I mean, so useful, but god damn, did they murder my grandfather out of stupidity?
He, like a lot of kids, I suppose, he had his imaginary friends.
Yeah.
But like he was playing, he would play around with what he called the little folk.
Oh.
The wee people.
Seeing fairies.
Yeah.
He said he would see his dead grandfather and talk to him after he passed.
It's Victoria Woodhull esque.
Yeah, and he kind of knew early on that they were not really there, because he said if I squinted I could see through them, so he knew that everything was incorporeal.
Yeah.
It's a boat.
Oh God! Wow, really? It was like that.
Yeah, he's like, oh, they're not. Can't you see them? He's just like, no,
Right,
they're the little folks around.
Dude, that's so crazy.
So
Did you teach your grandpa to swim?
after the fact,
He didn't need to anymore, did he?
the word was that also his grandfather, like his family had it. They said like, oh, his grandfather could like make brooms dance and make table jump and shit.
No shit.
They're already into that.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Maybe it's just a family trick as opposed to a city to city.
Yeah.
Like,
There's riffraff afoot.
Yeah.
He started going to church at 10. His parents started taking him to church at 10. They were deeply evangelical Christian, but he was really into it. He started reading the Bible, religiously. He started reading it all the time. He started when he turned 12, he was like, I'm going to read it every year through, but cover to cover. So he would start.
I knew some kids like that.
Like 35. I think it was 30 pages a day.
Yeah.
Every day except Sundays or something like that. So he had by the time he was 65, he had read it 67 times or something like that.
Good God.
He would go out into the woods by himself to play with the little folk or talk to old dear old granddad
Sure, yeah.
and read the Bible. He he went out there and he saw this woman, this like bright woman with wings.
Oh, that's nice.
And she told him that all your prayers will be answered, and she asked him, what is it that you want most of all? And he was freaked the fuck out, right?
And that was Linda McCartney.
And he said that most of all, he just wanted to help others, especially sick children.
Aww.
And he was a kid at that point.
Yeah.
And then
Well, that's what he says he said.
that's what he says he saw, and that's what he said he said. And then there was nothing of it after that. But he went home, and he was
I want to teach old men to swim. They can't do it for
those
shit.
poor old fucks. I want to teach horses to speak,
I want to teach horses.
and I'll name it after me, Edgar. We could call him Mister. Do you have any peanut butter, George Washington Carver? He had
Put it all over my cock.
I love this story.
oh, goo!
The story really comes
I put
together.
it all over my chinkle shankle.
Oh god.
He wasn't. He could read, but he had trouble like spelling. He wasn't like a great student.
I ain't got
And-
no trouble there.
I'm sorry. What?
I'm a great speller.
Good.
But can you read?
And
God bless me, I can.
and so his father, he had
He
what
didn't-
what we consider kind of abusive now, but was kind of standard practice of the
De
day.
rigueur.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his dad was like, "You're gonna fucking learn to read and write and spell. If that means I gotta fucking push you out of your chair every time
Yeah.
you spell something wrong."
At the tip of my belt, you're going to learn.
That's right. You put the tip to the bottle mouth, right? And
But Daddy, I have other powers. There's Grandpa.
so he would like every time he could. I think he had trouble spelling the word cabin.
Oh, that's where
And,
they lived.
And every time he would misspell it, he'd just like knock him out of his fucking chair.
Ooh.
And he's on there on the ground like, fuck, I gotta spell cabin again. I keep fucking this up. And he said that at that point he heard the voice of the lady from the woods, who appeared a day or two earlier, and she told him that
CABIN.
yeah, well no, she said if you could sleep a little, we could help you. And so he said, Dad, can I have a minute to rest, and I promise I'll get it right.
Oh,
You know?
this beating is
Yeah, just
is
making me
wearing me.
tired. Can I have a little sleep? And so he,
Because I mean, this is 5 letters, Dad. You gotta
Yeah.
understand. I gotta go to sleep. I gotta sleep on it.
sleeps
Is it
5 letters.
CBAIN?
Cabin's 5
I
letters.
know. Is it Cabane? I don't know. Is it Nabic? Nobody knows. Let me sleep on it. I'll be back tomorrow. This lady with fairy fucking, wings is gonna help me out.
Didn't even have to take all night.
Oh, nice.
Took a little nap, rested his head on the book,
Now that's nice.
and when his father came back to the room and woke him up, he knew all the answers, could spell every word in the book. In fact, he could repeat anything in the book if you told him the page.
Oh, he sang Band on the Run, and it sounded great.
Oh,
Photographic memory.
he wasn't. He said he just slept on it.
So you didn't even look at it.
Didn't even look at it.
Whoa.
I mean, if you want to get a more reasonable about it, yeah, then you could say photographic memory. But even then, that's incredibly rare.
Right.
It
Well,
is.
that's not even
It's not even a
photographic,
real.
is
It's not
it?
even a
'Cause-
real thing. I mean, what I'm saying is,
Yes.
if his father left the room and he did read it all and
Yes,
have a
yes,
photo, that
yes,
you could
yes.
say that. But
Yes.
even then, a photographic memory is really not what it is purported to be.
Does that just show up Like, it doesn't
But-
just show up randomly.
There's no
right?
such thing as a true photographic memory.
No, but
It's a really good memory.
but
There's eidetic memory, and then there's like
The peop-
certain
the-
autistic people who can fucking see a landscape and draw it.
there are people that will remember, April 19th, 1949, the weather outside.
Yeah, there's that guy-
That is a real thing.
Yeah, there's that guy Kim. What's his name? His name's Kim something, and he's like a true savant. I mean, like really, every zip code, the day of the week in AD 24,
Yeah.
whatever. Like a true savant who's otherwise totally incapable of doing anything. It's Kim something. We'll have
No
to fucking
shit.
look him up. Yeah, zip code, everything. So he in fact he could spell it. He could recite anything, any page in the book that his dad pointed to. His dad thought he had been fooling the whole time and knocked him out of his chair again.
Nice.
Isn't that how
You
it
been fucking
always...
with me this whole time, you son of a bitch.
You
It's
making
like,
a fool out of
now,
me?
Yeah, like now you get it right. Now you take
now
a
you
beating.
get it right.
You get it wrong, you get a beating. You get it right, You get a beating.
Oh, you're a smart guy, huh?
Yes,
Oh, I
exactly.
see.
That would always is.
I'm the dummy. I'm the dad. Ooh, what do I know?
What's it say right here on this page? The
Yeah. Let me see what it says on this belt buckle.
This is your name.
Eventually, Edgar would use all his school books this way. Just
Sleep on.
throw them up to his head and sleep on them, and no.
And then the butterflies would fly through his ears. And
I can
drop
fly
the
twice
knowledge.
as high with LeVar Burton, who was in Roots,
What?
which this is not.
So, but a lot of this information, I imagine, comes from his autobiography that he's writing like 30 years later.
No. He didn't. He never wrote an autobiography. There was a book called "There Is a River," written by an associate of his that is the biography. But
Okay.
that guy was a real believer too, so it's not the most reliable.
But it is also, but it's
That's hot.
it's a couple decades later, right? It's
Soon after his death.
yeah. Okay.
But these are all pretty much, all of this stuff is first, it's firsthand.
Sure.
So it's not objective, right?
Right.
It could be, building the brand, the myth. He was playing baseball as a kid, just a schoolyard game, and he was struck in the spine, the lower spinal area,
Oh,
and
spinal.
and after that, he started acting like a fucking weirdo after getting hit by the ball.
Really?
Yeah.
That's spinal.
And they
for
said,
you.
you know what? Let's just put you to bed.
Was his back broken?
His back was not broken, but it was spinal. And they put him to bed, and he was acting weird, just like
Abnormal?
abnormal. And he fell into a kind of sleep-like state, like he would with the book.
Mm.
And he dictated orders to his parents to make a poultice.
Yeah.
A poultice. You take some maize and some herbs.
Yeah.
And tinctures.
Next, can I get pastrami salad?
No. Say what a poultice is.
A
Come on.
poultice is like a spackle of natural shit. You take like some cornstarch.
Paste.
Yeah, it's like a paste. You make a poultice and then you apply it to a part of your body or
Yeah.
something.
Usually like a wound or something. It's like it's just this.
In his case, it was his back.
Right. He splacked his back.
Did he?
Splack is back.
Really?
Well, not with his splack, but
But he got his parents to splack his back?
they made the spackle and they put it on his
They
backle.
splacked it all over his back?
And
And he survived.
he was when he woke up he was fine.
Oh, that's nice.
And
Parents.
his
Edgar.
and
My Edgar's gonna make it.
and he was talking like he was like in a trance of make the fucking spackle pay. And his father would then go on to say that my son, well, he's the greatest fellow in the world when he's asleep.
That's nice.
When I knock him out, I love that boy.
Oh boy. So that was kind of like the beginnings of this ability. It kind of disappeared for a few years.
His dad probably beat it out of him.
Boy, that kid takes a beating.
But he would go on to say that he could see auras around people.
Oh,
Was speaking to angels.
Sure.
that's nice.
Heard voices of dearly departed relatives, aka Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of stifled these talents because they kind of conflicted with his deep Christian values.
Oh, it seemed like heresy.
Right.
It seemed like
interesting.
Even though every Christian prophet
Right.
or Judeo-Christian prophet,
it came out of nowhere.
they were all having these things.
Yes.
Well, this is his. He's entered. He's gone to the other side, and now he's fighting. He hasn't found his master yet,
Right.
or his teacher yet.
And it's a
he's
thing though too. Where like fucking even Christ has his moment of doubt and pain.
right.
Anybody
It's in song.
Anybody hearing voices is of course having doubt and pain because they're like, oh shit, I'm talking straight to the devil because this isn't in the guidebook.
Right.
But
So he, like I said, his adolescent years, it kind of fades away or is really not explored very much further. When he's in his early 20s, when he's like 22, 23, he goes into business. Well, let me say that he stopped school in ninth grade, it was money issues, and also that time you don't need to go to school past the 9th grade unless you're going to be like,
Right.
You still don't in my book.
which is all spelled incorrect.
My book.
It's school for the deaf.
So he had to make money for the family.
Right. He had to start going. So he had a series of odd jobs, and when he was 23, he went into business with his father to sell insurance. They were going to do insurance sales, but soon thereafter, he was struck with some like either paralysis of the vocal cords, laryngitis. He couldn't speak at all. He lost his speech totally. And so you can't sell insurance if you can't talk.
No.
So
It's tough.
It's tough. And so he just lived at home with his parents for about a year, and decided to pick up photography because you don't really need to talk for that unless you say cheese, but who cares? And so he got pretty good at doing photography. I believe that's how he met his to-be fiance and wife.
So wait, so he's 23. It's like 1895 or something. No,
It's 1900. 1900.
Okay. So
Photography.
23, not talking.
not talking, but taking pictures.
Yeah.
Also, not the easiest thing to do.
Right.
There's a lot of wait.
Also,
a lot of downtime.
not talking suddenly is very hard.
Mhm.
Yeah, that could be an issue.
20.
Especially in 23.
Yeah.
You have so much wise shit to say.
But also, his dad's not beating him up now.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And also, like, if any of you have ever worked with your parents, sometimes it's like, oh, sorry, I can't now.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I guess I'll not work with you now that I can't speak.
Are you deaf or mute? Yeah. It's just his dad.
So then coming through town is this guy named Hart the Laugh King, traveling hypnotist.
Hart the Laugh King?
That's right. And he does these fucking traveling hypnosis shows, and this is around the time that this is really picking up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hypnosis. I think he had studied mesmerism under fucking Mesmer and all that shit. And
Who? Hart had?
Hart.
No
Yeah,
shit.
Yeah.
Well, he's a Laugh King, John.
He's the Laugh King.
It's like Jerry Lewis, but then.
And he actually pulled Edgar on stage at one of these shows, and like I said, I'll fix you.
I'll make you talk again.
That's right.
Oh, you're gonna laugh, boy.
Under hypnotic suggestion, his voice returned. He sat up and spit up blood, and his voice returned to normal.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
there's just blood in there.
And then after the hypnotic suggestion ended, he could only like whisper.
Whoa.
And he worked with him a couple times under hypnosis, and it slightly got better every time he came out of it, but it was never like it was under hypnosis. And then he kind of referred him to a hypnotist, an occultist named Al Lane, who stayed in town because Al Hart, Hart the Laugh King, had to go, see his subjects around the country.
Yeah,
You
you
gotta
go see the
he's
rube.
a Laugh King. He has to see his.
See the rubes in Schenectady.
Yeah, he's got to go sell him a monorail or whatever. So Al helps him out with the voice stuff, doing that.
He's a hypnotherapist, basically.
And Al also has Edgar diagnose his own difficult. Like, he has him go under and say, "What's wrong with you?" And he says that there's like an issue of flow with the blood flow and the constriction of the vocal cord.
Out.
And that's I think this is when he coughs up blood. It's not on stage. It's under Al Lane's tutelage and self-diagnosis under this hypnosis that he coughs up the blood and speaks again.
Clears his throat.
Yeah, clears his throat.
Wow.
There's just something in there.
Damn, that's so cool.
Never thought about doing this.
And so he starts giving Lane's like, "Yo, you got to do this for other people.
You got to cover up blood for other people.
No,
Yeah.
you got to diaggnose other people of their shit." And so Lane starts bringing in his patient.
teacher.
That's right. And he starts going into his own kind of little self-hypnotic state and saying, diagnosing Al's patients. And
Oh, shit.
Al,
So the kid who's been hypnotized becomes the diagnose.
Yeah, diagnostician.
Really?
Hey, you feeling weird? Because this kid, I'm just going to put him under. He's going to tell you everything that's wrong with you.
Yeah.
You got a gerbil in your ass, you dumb fuck.
Doesn't
Can't
take a
take
fucking psychic to see that.
Says that every Thursday.
So Lane thought you're straight. You're a clairvoyant, and he's like, let's bring this to the masses, right? And Edgar was really reluctant to do this because he was asleep. He's like, I don't even know what I'm saying. He had no recollection under these trances what he was telling people.
But it's the same as when he was a kid with the poultice, right? So he's in that same mindset of half of the bag.
I empathize. I do my best work on this show when I'm not here.
I do my best work when I'm basically blacked out.
Yeah. Today, me and John we were watching that the Gator video, and we're like, John was like, I don't remember this part, and I was like, yeah, I don't either, but that beginning part I remember. And John was like, we probably watched it for the first time when we were fucked up, and I was like, yeah, just like every episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Like, we have to watch it together again because the next day we'll be like,
what?
Great episode last night, right?
You said it.
Yeah,
Boys,
it was
right.
Yeah,
it was.
But we do we're watching it and we're having our own in a trance moment, watching it, pausing it, dissecting it, having great commentary, going back into it.
Yeah.
The world will never know the genius that came out of our mouths.
No, yeah. It is something. A bunch of people have told me that it should be. Joe K told me he's like, film that. He's like, just film that. He's like, it's funny.
Let's do it, because everybody, and not to pat ourselves on the back here, but everybody that we watch comic book movies with, we subject them to it. They're like, I don't care that you pause it. It's always better because of that. And I have more fun watching it with you guys.
Yeah.
So if you want us to do that, some sort of riff tracks type of thing, let us know. We're going to do it anyways.
Yes. Without a doubt.
Sin duda.
Without doubt.
So he was reluctant to do this with Lane because he had no idea what he was prescribing when he was asleep and whether the remedies were safe or fucking poison or whatever,
He was always just like, jack me off.
And
I got a clog in my balls. Feels so good.
That's where the pee is.
I mean, I gotta piss.
Yeah, but eventually, he was like, I don't want to know anything about the patient beforehand. I'll do it, but I don't want to know anything about the beforehand because it's not relevant. And I
Fuck
don't.
out of here. That's so sick.
And he was like, I'll do it as long as they're free.
Mm.
He didn't want to charge people
Okay,
to do the readings.
that's nice.
Edgar.
That's so sick.
Yeah. He had this.
But then how would Al make his money?
Well, yeah, that's
I mean, if you're doing free shit, they're gonna pay for whatever the
for something
show
else,
is.
right?
Yeah, whatever. The
You
extra.
enjoyed this. Are you you're clean and clear now?
Well,
Now
you also-
Did you
Buy an
like
hour.
the guy that cured your cancer? Perhaps you'd like the other thing. I'm doing.
he recommended a poultice. We've got a number of poultices here for sale.
What's your favorite poultice?
I love poultry.
This is such a poultry poultice you have here. You have anything more substantial?
My husband has a poltergeist in his balls. He's sick. Help him.
And so he eventually, he would eventually get to the point where the person didn't even have to be there. They could send a letter.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
Dude, that is exactly what I was saying with that healing shit.
Yeah.
That old Irish healing shit was shit
And it's also gypsy and middle.
I was, my dad was telling me when I was growing up in Long Island, my dad is an Irish immigrant, and he's telling me the fucking New York Times has this story in Ireland about they won't knock down this tree and they'll build a road around it. And he's like, it makes us look so tacky and silly. And I'm like, yeah, but Dad, you grew up in Dublin. I'm like, there's people out in the country that believe this shit, And I was like, and there's people here that believe the same shit because they're fucking Scotch Irish and they have some of the same shit. And then when I was over there and I was just had happened to get to know a guy over the course of a year or two, and then I caught just the good bar discussion of a culture I was not aware of, which was belief in not church sanctioned belief.
Yeah, it's folk mysticism.
Yes,
Yes,
and it's
yes,
definitely
yes,
them.
yes.
I mean, especially in Ireland with, all the old mythology pre-Christianity. There's tons of it.
Yeah.
There was
More of that than there is Christian mythology.
Ireland is smaller than New York State, which the first time I heard that, it blew my mind. And they would have several kings, several, like dozens of kings over each patch, and then it's St. Patrick and Christianity, and then it becomes like more of a thing. But still, all of those things, like every other thing that Christianity dominates, they still want to bring up that
Syncretism.
yes, they want to bring up all of the old mythology and justify it, and justify still believing in it.
Yeah, what are saints but idols?
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
you don't have any other idols before me. Well, what about St. Francis and St. Mark?
But a lot of it still gets very witchy,
without a doubt.
in a way that is the seventh son of the seventh son.
And having
imbued?
totems. I mean,
Yes.
that's very witchy as well.
Yes.
It's all...
There's a lot of that stuff. And so this guy I knew, is just total. This is a reasonable, middle-aged man I drink with all the time. And he was just going like, yeah, there's this guy I know. He's like, if you're bleeding, you call him, and you just say your name and your birthday, and like your bleeding will stop. And like they're going back and forth, and like if you have this type of cross in your house, it'll never burn down. Like all these fucking like crazy
And then
things.
if it does burn down, though,
You had it
it's
wrong.
not the cross. There was
Well, I
something
forgot
else.
to tell you, you had a lizard under the deck.
Well, no,
Yeah,
they were saying it in total.
No, of course,
absolutist terms.
but
They're saying
the issue is that when the thing does happen,
there's always a reason for that.
It's not. No one goes, well, obviously that was bullshit.
Right.
They go, well, there's
That's
something.
the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah.
Right. But it is just something that's like.
It is interesting that does happen.
And yeah, they were completely, it just didn't sound the same as like douchey conspiracy thought or something, or like
No,
where
I don't. It's
people
not
are-
that way. I don't think that at all. Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's
well,
not conspiratorial. It's folk wisdom that, for a very long time, was good enough.
yes,
And it worked enough, and there was no suitable replacement.
And
The same thing with shamanism in hunter gatherer tribes is usually that person is mentally ill, and they're kind of walking the line between both worlds, and they do bring something to the table,
yes,
and they're willing to do things that other people aren't, and so there's not. I think that's a one-to-one connection here.
right. I think there are things that are there's something inherent in people before maybe the science of it is discovered of
Absolutely.
it being true.
Yes.
Where they just go like, I know that's real
Yeah.
and works
Yeah.
for some reason.
These people eating this fucking pig, they keep getting sick.
Yeah.
They-
I mean, yeah, but also like on another level in ways that I don't think we understand. There's something that we were talking about fasting and things like that, and like all that stuff. But I think there are things that people just look at and they go like, I just feel like that's true, and it's easier for me to accept that if it's not something that feeds your own ego, like I was saying, like with conspiracy stuff, because that is something that goes like, I'm the only one that knows the
Yeah, a
truth.
lot of conspiracy stuff is just wanting to be right and having some sort of secret knowledge.
Yeah,
Yes.
but other times there's something like in this discussion that I was witnessing between just like a woman and a man on both sides of a bar, and they're going back and forth on these old, just healer rumor myth things, and they were both completely believing each other, and they were saying like, oh, and I also think this is a thing, and like it wasn't self-aggrandizing,
Right.
It was just a discussion.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, I think there is something to as people, we have created society and all of these ways to live, and as the more we do that, we also, I have fake wood paneling.
We're
here.
further away from our natural state.
Yes,
And this is a way to ground us back to something more ancient and common.
And in some ways it may be better for us to have still have a touch with
Yeah.
the fact that we
Yes.
came out of water, and we've done so many things to then poison the earth that built us, that made us, right?
Yes.
Because we've forgotten the fact that the earth is the thing that created us, and we're destroying it.
Or that we're just a part of it.
Yeah, we're just
the part
another
of it that
thing
has
in it.
eyes.
We're not the. But also, I think some of that's it's not a conspiracy. These things are not the beliefs in these things are not conspiracies
Yeah,
because they're not. A conspiracy is generally negative, and so like you're saying, it's feeding that ego. And I think that these types of people, it's always interesting where. How bad is it? Because at the same time, they are helping people get through their day, even if that thing they're doing is not completely true or real. They're still helping someone get through their day.
Right.
Yeah,
How
there's at
important
least
is
a
that?
product, and the product is some kind of salvation or healing.
Right, and there's something to be said for ritual. Right?
Yes.
Ritual is something that kind of gets you out of your everyday front of your brain problem-solving mindset, and it just kind of it's like meditation.
Yes.
Or chanting. Doing ritual gets you, it roots you to something older and more universal, and you can kind of zone out and tap in.
Right.
And that's not exactly what we're talking about with Edgar, but it is kind of this larger conversation where also like, listen, man, who know, is the eye of Newt poultice gonna fix your fucking butthole bunion? No, but like placebo is a real fucking thing.
Yeah.
So, and now listen, as time goes forward, we have tried and true prescriptions and methods for dealing with it that are, verified by experimentation and testing, and right. But that's a very, very new recent thing, and so. This period of time that Edgar is in, and this tradition that he's finding himself falling into, in a very new way, is nothing new. It is taking on the role of the shamanic healer, who is
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
really tapping into something deeper and older and more mystical, while still being in kind of a modern age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So. Let's see, where were we? He met the Laugh King, right?
Yep.
And he was so he could do it with just the letters, like you were saying. That somebody would call the fucking Irish guy and he would tell you what.
Right.
He said that you send me a letter and just give me their name and location, and I'll fucking go to sleep. I go to have to sleep, and he says that. It's not a true sleep and it's not a trance, but he would just kind of lay and he would clasp his hands like over his like solar plexus area kind of. And what he termed the entity would be the one like doing this communication and provide the remedy. And sometimes he would speak in languages he didn't know.
Yes.
Even in dialects of that language.
It's just like I say, it's the exact inversion of the Emily Rose.
Yeah, or any sort of possession.
Yes.
I think so much of this is apocryphal and firsthand accounts, not necessarily like, even though he is the most documented psychic of all time.
Yes.
Extensive. He had a stenographer, this woman named Gladys, who was with him for a very long time, who took extensive minutes and notes once he became a professional.
Yeah, but there's just some of these people. And same in the Padre Pio way, where like at the root of the story is a person mostly not interesting enough to do a hoax this big.
Right.
Especially to the point of learning other languages.
Yes. And that's also not to say that eventually he didn't take on things that, fake psychics do, like cold reads and vague, you can have this natural ability. Let's say you've got this natural ability. And now this thing spirals out of control and is now a business, and it's bigger than you, and you feel indebted to the public to serve them. Well, yeah, maybe you are going to learn some of the tactics that con men use to keep it going. Like Hannesen, Hitler's Jewish psychic, wasn't psychic. He was a fucking circus performer, and he was exquisitely talented. Mm-hmm. And you learn these things just to increase your repertoire and your business. So
and the conflation of ego with reality is. Yeah.
So he would still help people, like I said, via correspondence. He still was really hesitant about making this a thing because he was like, all I need is one dead patient and I'm a murderer. I give one bad remedy, somebody dies, and then I'm forever unclean.
Yeah.
His fiancee Gertrude agreed with him, but the newspaper started picking up on it, and they billed him as like the illiterate man who becomes a doctor when hypnotized. There's
a lot of, especially newspapers back then.
They run that shit.
This is third or fourth generation since Ben Franklin.
But it is just so interesting too, like this idea of it being possible that any of us could be a subliminal textbook, like you know what I mean, like the idea that like, you know, in my present conscious state, I'm obviously incredibly stupid.
But that's because the theory is that you are just getting in the way of the thing,
of the data.
Yeah. Right. And so and I was going to wait to talk about it later, but why? So he would talk about this as being basically the Akashic records or the Book of Time, or a lot of cultures and mystical traditions have this idea of the Hall of Records. And the Akashic records is that, and it was later later in his life as he was alive that, you know, Einstein does relativity theory, and he's like, well, time is really subjective and it's all one thing. So I'm just tapping into that. The fact that all time happens at once.
Right.
So so he would get into doing past life stuff with people. Right,
because it is just a different line.
You're just you're just scrolling through the thing and getting to it.
Right. You're not going through time. You're just passing through
that other dimension. It exists as a 4-dimensional object, and you're just rotating it to see it. So, you know,
it's so interesting.
I kind of want to say, I mean,
it's true.
No. Do it in the way you want to do it. You can take a break if you want.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It is very interesting because it kind of gets into this. Yeah, I guess I'll save it a little bit because there's more to get to, and his life will be over soon enough, and then we can talk about the good shit.
No, great.
So
it's boulders.
He gets pretty much world famous at this point. He's getting letters from all over the world
about being the subliminal doctor.
Yeah, like my balls hurt.
The one that
my name's Steve. I live in Paducah.
Accurately diagnose what's going on.
Right,
but because of the newspapers. So he goes from just on a couch to letters, and then the newspapers make him a bigger,
so they're
worldwide thing.
Yeah, but he's also not taking money.
Good move.
So that
also makes it bigger.
Right. He still has to have jobs.
Isn't that the thing that also with like Salk too? Like
with what?
With Salk.
Oh, Jonas Salk.
Yeah.
Yeah, except the vaccine really did work.
Right.
But also, are you going to take it more if the guy's not taking money?
Right.
Oh yeah.
In a skeptic thing, like which we're now.
Right now,
that's why it's Bill Gates, right?
It's one
Soros.
It's one of the things where you go like
the really rich people.
Well, he's not getting anything out of it.
For those, Jonas Salk made the polio vaccine.
Yeah.
So.
And he took no money from it. And he said
it belonged to the world.
He said it would be like patenting the sun.
Yeah.
And he was like, I have a good life. I have a good income. I'm a family doctor. Why would I need to profit off that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think him not doing that made a lot of poor people be like...
And I think also people back then were less... People realized the miracle of science back then because they didn't take it for granted.
Yeah.
They didn't have the luxury of doing that. They were dying of smallpox and polio left and right.
But with everything we're talking about here, it also shows you that...
Yes, what you're saying about the goodwill of not charging...
Yes.
Goes so far in doing
to the heart of people that stay with old world, old culture mythology.
Right.
And it's the one way to really win them over. Like,
definitely.
That Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, like, you know, these... mega rich company, like it's not this summer's hottest look that they're gonna get a payday out of everybody returning to commerce.
Yes,
I'm not saying don't get vaccinated. I'm just saying I think that's why maybe it's a little bit harder for some people to swallow that pill.
Well, that's why they say Bill Gates.
I think here's the thing: these people that are having trouble swallowing the pill, taking the shot. If it was free, they'd say, "Oh, see how bad they want you to take it."
Yeah, maybe
these people are not going to be reason.
But isn't it free? It is free.
But yes, but still, even though they'll just find a reason.
Yeah.
To make it seem like they're forcing it on you.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
they'll just find a fucking reason.
I know.
When the smallpox, I think was it fucking smallpox, New York City vaccinated the entire city in like 3 days. People were just they really had some respect for the miracle.
Well, they got to see the horror of it every day more.
It was a much more overt, devastating, in your face disease as opposed
this person
to
in my family, blah, blah, blah.
and there are boils all over and shit. This is just harder to wrap your head around as a pandemic.
Sidebar, continue.
So, he still was really, hesitant about doing this. Still needed to have a job. So, he married Gertrude in 1903. They moved to Bowling Green, and he
South Carolina?
no, I think that's Ohio, isn't it?
There's a few of them.
I think he moved to. He did move to Ohio because that's near Kentucky.
There's actually a Kentucky, yeah.
Oh, shit.
It's all in that same big circle.
Yeah, because he then later moved to
weirdness.
Dayton. It's Bowling, whatever. Who cares? It's all the same middle of the world piece of shit. If you're from there, no offense.
It's totally different. Don't worry about it.
It's totally different. I'm not talking about you. Talking about people that are now dead. He had a studio and a bookstore.
Nice.
And he had bought a bunch of art on consignment from overseas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because things were, he was trying to make a business, a life for himself and his family.
Yeah.
Ohio and Kentucky.
Nice. This is probably in Kentucky, though.
And they're right next to each other.
And then a fire burned it all down and plunged him into debt because he didn't have a chance to pay off the consignment for the art.
That's a fucking...
Should have bought your dad's insurance.
Didn't see that coming.
We did not see that coming.
That fucking sucks.
Their first son was born in 1907. Then a second fire burned the studio down.
Jesus Christ. Bowling Green?
But about a year or two later, he paid off all that debt. He was completely broke.
Yeah.
And he was ready to start over again. And he's a 30-year-old man. He's just turning 30 now in 2007. And so
you have to start charging for your diagnoses.
Yeah.
Is that what happened? Pretty
kind
much?
of. But he was still famous for. He was still doing it, and he refused a couple offers to go into business doing it. And this time was with a guy named Wesley Ketchum, who was kind of an early pioneer of homeopathy and osteopathy. But homeopathy is 100% bullshit. It does not work.
What is homeopathy?
Homeopathy is like, I'm going to take some of this herb and I'm going to soak it in water and then I'm going to dilute it 1,000 times over and then I'm going to put it in a pill with sugar and you're going to take it and it's going to fix you.
Isn't that kind of the beginning of science, though?
No, that's not the beginning of science. Alchemy is the beginning of science, and science.
Alchemy turning shit into
yes,
gold.
because it involved experimentation.
Because it never happened.
Because
nobody.
That is one part of alchemy.
No,
and guess what science can do now? It can turn shit into gold.
That sugar was everybody knew, everybody involved in that process.
There was no testing.
Knew
Science
there was
is
nothing.
a process. Science has existed. By the time 1907 rolls around, science had existed for 350 years.
Also, the Ketchums.
Rolling his fucking eyes at Newton.
The last time we talked about the Ketchums, with completely different clan,
Einstein.
but the same.
the fucking war criminal, Jesus Christ!
Every Ketchum apparently is a fucking shyster. Yeah. The last time we talked about the Ketchums, they were the idiot robbers in the West, and now they're these.
And here's the thing: it's not just he was just a homeopath and just pushing quack. I mean, he was also I believe an osteopath, doctor, and chiropractor.
But the fact that he's not charging is like.
Well, I'm not talking. Wesley was trying.
That's what I mean. I'm sorry.
I'm talking about Wesley. Wesley was a homeopath.
Right. Okay. Right. But Edgar Cayce's not charging, so yeah.
That's right.
But anyway, it was Wesley.
But Ketchum was really persistent, and he was able to. I mean, he was really well connected in the medical circles. He was a doctor, but also was kind of pushing homeopathy.
Yeah, it was in that time where it was very blended, and
yes, it was all the same. They are trying shit out.
Yeah, the people are going like, okay, so one person grinds fucking shit in a fucking thing, and then it becomes medicine. This person's doing the same thing with a goddamn herb, and they go like, what's the difference?
But it's not that, because it's below levels that are even like almost testable. Like, yes, you can take homeopathy is not holistic or natural medicine. Those are different things.
Right. And it's one going like, hey, if you have a lot of time in your diet, like you won't get bowel cancer.
Right. That's
And you go like, okay, well, I did it and I don't have bowel cancer, so that's true. That's kind of what
homeopathy is even lamer. Like, traditional Chinese medicine has benefits.
sure.
There are there is reasonable stuff in it. The stuff that homeopathy is like imperceptible amounts of some extract, like not just like you can take a vitamin of oregano oil and it's got antiviral properties. That's fine. That's real shit.
Watered down a sugar cube.
Yeah, it's like watered down to like I think like thousands of times watered down, dehydrated, put in a sugar pill. I mean, I can't believe it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, taking extracts of herbs or like that's real shit. I don't want to besmirch any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But like homeopathy, it quickly became quack shit. But this guy was just kind of the beginning of that when they were testing all sorts of shit out.
Can I just say one thing? There is a thing where doubt, and like we said in the Lysenko episode, there was things that like Lysenko had that modern scientists are going like, he was actually right about this through no fault of his own.
He was onto something.
He was onto something,
Right.
But there was also, like I remember.
But that's the difference between homeopathy and other shit, and that's why Lysenko never got to where he could have been because they never tested it.
But also, the sanctioned answer not being the politically correct one is one that makes people always doubt science. For instance, just in the way that I think you'll completely agree, marijuana was treated for the longest time, and it took year after year after year of Time, Life articles being like, all of the testing on this shit is like, nobody will die from it.
Mm-hmm.
It seriously alleviates symptoms of all of these things.
But for the vast arc of human history, everybody knew it. It was only for the past 70, 80 years that there was this black mark on it.
But in a much more hyper communicative thing.
Oh, totally.
Where you were led to believe like it was the joke drug and the loser drug and like all this stuff and like, and then people go like, no, really it is. And we're still trying to convince people of medicinal value of marijuana. Like
definitely.
That is
embarrassing. But we're not trying to convince them of the medicinal value of like a molecule of it in a gallon of water, dried into a sugar pellet.
Sure.
We are putting it in gummies and pills.
But that does lead into the doubt of everything else, is how wrong they were for so long about one thing that was so scientifically proven to alleviate a host of human
Well, they weren't
ailments.
even allowed. That part of it is that they weren't allowed to do the testing.
Right.
It was so politically
charged.
Right. I mean, for that, it was used to put hippies and black people behind bars. And Mexicans.
Yeah.
It was used for that purpose.
But if suddenly that's the new norm and like the thing that's supposed to cure all these ailments, and you go like,
it calls it.
And you go like,
why should I believe?
You call everything into doubt.
So how does that relate to what we're talking about here?
Because it just leads everybody to these weird places of what they just feel like is true. And that's the worst thing about like people diving into pseudoscience.
Right. And this
They'll
is also
buy
a time
bullshit because the authorities don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, totally. I buy it. It does. Why should I believe, if I'm if I'm a black American, I'm like, yeah, you remember Tuskegee? Why am I going to let you shoot me up?
Right.
Yeah.
What reason do I have to trust you?
My dad died of heart disease. His heart collapsed, and he was like in the hospital for emphysema stuff, and because he'd been like a lifelong smoker, and he's like, no insurance, and he's like, they're gonna make me pay for a stress test on my heart, and he goes, I know my heart is fine. About to fall apart. Passes the stress test with flying colors, and they're like, yeah, your heart is actually in remarkable shape. And later on, there would be billboards saying the number one symptom of heart disease is sudden death.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just still doctors. And this is things like, my dad as a guy smoking cigarettes being like, oh, well,
I feel fine.
It's not all people dying of lung cancer. It's like he always had.
But odds are,
yes,
they always. There was always the same way. There's always a reason.
Yes, there's always this thing to not trust.
They don't know everything.
They don't know everything.
That's correct, and they are the first to admit that.
Yes, and also,
Yes, well, that's
and
what
you
the
know
issue is.
less
And you
as a citizen,
and you won't even admit that.
yes.
And that is that, and we've talked about this on this show before. Science is the process of saying we don't know, but here's the best evidence for this
To date,
and please come up with a better one.
yeah,
Until then, we're working off this.
yeah.
And this is everything happening during this time is this very interesting transition period from old world folk shit into modern stuff, and that's again kind of what we were talking about is very unique about Edgar. So this guy Ketchum, he's well connected, and he starts spreading the word about Edgar in the medical circle. And in 1910, he gets written up in the press, and he blows up. The reporter contacts Cayce, and he tells him like, I can just kind of intuitively go into this little sleep state, and it's not like normal sleep. It's not like when I go to sleep at night, and I'm not hypnotized. I just can get into this state and
Zone.
the zone, and he asked me, well, what's the mechanism behind the readings and the sleep? And he said, well, I think it's the subconscious mind, right? And this is right around, I think Freud is starting to get
Interesting.
but it's also he's in Vienna, but whatever.
A lot of coffee around.
Yeah, I was taking shits, doing coke. Ketchum is urging Edgar to join it to make a business venture together, and he says, "Okay, I'll do it, but I'm not taking any money for the readings." He said, "But I would give me a photography studio, so I can run a business out of that."
Mm-hmm.
So he gets his photography studio, and we can keep the office for the readings separate from that, and I'll do it.
So that's very interesting. He has a real gig, and then
Set me up to have a real gig, and then I'll do this. He just did not feel good taking money to do this.
Right.
Because he felt like he was doing pseudoscience.
Well, he knew. I think he felt that one, it was a big risk that because he never knew what he was saying, not until it was copied down by a stenographer afterwards.
Yeah, man, it's like fucking blacking out and handing people prescriptions.
Yeah, you don't exactly. But in it, I think people were so into it that he also felt that it was kind of unchristian, right? What he was doing was just it was kind of at odds with the dogma of the day for him. But he also was helping people, which is super Christian, and it's what he fucking asked the angel lady in the forest to do anyway.
Right,
so you get what you wish for, buddy.
It is, yeah. I do think it is also very much the Jonas Salk thing. He's like,
if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna not take any money for it, right?
Right,
So
right thing to do.
and then the contract was modified to give 50% of the earnings to like his family, like his dad and stuff like that. So it was amended that he did not take money, but it benefited his family.
Yeah.
And then he started to read the transcripts of the readings after he would wake up,
oh, interesting.
and they contain so many terms that he started like learning what they meant.
Because he didn't know.
He didn't know. Now again, this is all firsthand stuff, and it's not. And this is a lot of this comes from the biography written by somebody close in his life.
But even if it's wrong, it still says
It's
something.
still close, right? It's still something, right? So, and so he preferred. He was like, I want to put. All right, if I'm going to do this, let's do it right. I'm going to learn what some of these things are and what these. He would say stuff like oil of smoke when really, and that was just a very old world term for. I think it's called beechwood ash, which is like activated carbon, and it was a treatment for psoriasis.
Yes.
Okay.
And so he just wanted to. So there's a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
That
it speaks to
the ancient nature
the
of this.
person saying Aramaic and
Right.
shit. Yeah.
So he started learning more about that, and he said, I want to put these things through a little more scientific rigor. So let's get some doctors to cooperate. And so he for like the first 9 years he did start working with doctors who were around, which kind of leads credence to maybe either he felt guilty about what he was doing as a sham, or he really wanted to advance
to the test.
Right. So, every you gotta imagine like going in to see this guy. If you're lucky enough not to have to write a
You
letter.
gotta imagine this guy.
You going to this guy? You going into the therapist's office. There's the fainting couch in the corner, and he's there.
And the doctor's
and he says welcome, and you think you're gonna, and then he takes a nap, starts spitting out poultices. You gotta imagine. So every trance it would start out with yes, we have the body. Isn't that weird?
Jesus. Yes, we have the body.
Yep.
He would say that out loud.
Yep. And,
That sounds
and
alien.
and then some doctors would come through and they like poke him with needles and shit to see if he was like fucking faking, and he just wouldn't flinch.
Fuck yeah.
What's a needle? Do through my nipples.
My urethra.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Then eventually, like Ketchum and his father would like ask him other questions while he was under trance, like about horse races and the commodities market.
Great. So
Do you know what he said there?
He gave him answers.
so there's someone in the room who's like, hey, my wife won't stop.
I've got ass cancer. Oh, ask him about Wells Fargo.
It almost sounds like Harvey Birdman, where it's just like someone bursts in the room, like, who's gonna win tomorrow at Hillsdale?
He can't help but answer. You're dead, kid. So that was going on. They moved to Selma, Alabama. And he started an art company down there. I mean, he still had to have a real job doing this.
Yeah.
So he,
Does he say why he moved?
I don't remember why he moved. It's not important, probably. Probably broke up with Ketchum. I think him and Ketchum fell out or whatever. Just
The profits were there.
But he stayed with Gertrude though.
oh, he was married to Gertrude until the end. Yeah.
Do you know like how they met or like what was going on there?
They met when he was like 19. They dated for a couple years and then got married.
Wow.
He would take pictures of her. I don't know if she was like they met through the photography thing, but like
nice picture.
Nice.
Nice.
Not nice, but nice. Yeah, she was a nice lady.
She's a good woman.
Loved his life. Father to his children.
Oh, that's so sweet.
One of which was I think Hugh. In the art studio, he was fucking around with some of these chemicals.
Oh no.
For photography and shit.
no.
And I think he lit a match by some flashing powder and burned his fucking eyeballs.
Oh, Hugh.
And the doctors were like, well, we're probably gonna have to fucking cut his eyes out.
Guess we'll just take these eyeballs and put them on display somewhere.
Take these eyeballs and put them in some formaldehyde.
I suppose I'll take these bowls and eyeballs and cradle them in my fists.
Cheeks, perhaps.
100 years from now,
doctor's orders: cradle the boy's eyeballs in my mouth.
And then his father levitated into the room.
His dad.
His old man.
Because the wife was always kind of like hesitant to like use this for their own family. But they tried it out and he was like, put some of this tannic acid on his fucking eyeballs and shit. Unheard of. Crazy. Doctors are like, we're gonna cut him out anyways.
Look at this guy.
Try it out.
Ugh.
And
let's humor the sleepy old bastard.
they put the shit in the kid's eyes and he said the kid said, this must be daddy's medicine because it doesn't hurt.
Oh,
And,
God, that's so good,
Within
Aaron.
6 weeks, his eyesight returned back to normal. That's pretty much documented.
Sure.
Dude, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Daddy's medicine because it doesn't hurt?
Yeah.
That's the sweetest shit of all time.
That is nice. I would wonder what his real issue with his eyes was, but I do like the idea of like, doctor's like, well, this sleeping guy, this guy who fell asleep over here, he told us to throw some acid in his eyes.
And then
Pass the tanning butter.
that word of that spread quick.
The child's healing.
His own kid and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Because he would have one of his kids die later, and that
For appearances.
just for the branding.
Just so he could talk to him later.
Was I don't. I can't.
He got approached, for business stuff a lot. Newspapers would always, show up asking him stuff, and people would show up like asking for financial advice and things like that. and every once in a while he would just give in and do it. He just couldn't.
No.
People seemed like they needed the help, and he would.
And he
still-
hadn't like enough money to keep himself going, even though he wasn't really.
Yeah, I mean, it was never really easy for him. But then, like a rich cotton merchant showed up and offered him $100 a day to do readings about the daily outcomes in the cotton market. And even though he was not making, I mean, they were still struggling as bookstore art, photography shit. He still said no. And then this,
To the cotton guy.
yeah,
Right on.
yeah. And then he in 23, this guy Arthur Lammers, who was like a wealthy printer guy, but he was also like a student of metaphysics,
Ooh.
right, which is really hot at the
That's pretty
time.
yes.
And he persuaded Edgar to do, well, like, what if it's not just, you seem to be tapping into a lot of shit here, right? This gets in, his study of metaphysics taps into the notion of the Akashic records and this, this great unconscious wealth of all
Understanding.
happenings,
Yes.
past, present, and future, right? And
So maybe it's
so he said, well, what else can we
time.
ask it?
The memory palace.
What,
Yeah.
right? What else can we ask, right? And so he's like, can you do readings on these philosophical, metaphysical subjects?
Oh, interesting.
And so,
So this was a guy who asked him to look back instead of forward.
or inside out, like
Yeah,
always,
yeah.
not just forward. I mean, because yes, the market speculators were asking them to look forward for their own personal gain, but Lammers was asking him to look
Look
inward,
look in.
right?
Okay, yeah.
And so, he did a reading for Lammers, and he talked about Lammers' past lives, and something that Lammers was a real believer in.
past
And
lives was something he was a real believer in.
Lammers,
He was.
yeah, he was, and so that might have been a way to kind of win his favor. But reincarnation was popular during this kind of spiritualist time, but not if you're a devout Christian. So like Edgar was like not about this. And he was
He's like,
struggling with like talking about
"Oh,
reincarnation and all that
I-
stuff.
Yeah.
And so he just like, man, I gotta reconcile this shit if I'm gonna keep doing it. So
Yeah.
he reread the Bible for the 65,000th time or whatever.
Yeah,
And he said he decided. Well, actually, he had a conversation with Lammers, and Lammers said that the 5th chapter of Matthew is the constitution of Christianity, and the Sermon on the Mount was its declaration of independence. And so, this kind of thing about the church is wherever you are. This kind of this way of separating yourself from the establishment, or even the Gospel of St. Thomas, which is not in the gospel, not in the Bible per se, which is actually in the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Yeah.
which he predicted
No shit.
30 years before they were found.
No way.
Yeah. Anyway, so he had Lammers helped him reconcile his Christian faith with the idea of reincarnation, and it's kind of stuff with the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and beginning with the Word, and the Word was made flesh type of stuff.
Sure.
Biblical scholars don't bother me about it. I'm fucking it up, I know, but so he says, come to Dayton. Let's pursue this metaphysical truth through your readings.
You got to go to Dayton.
You got to go to Dayton.
Yeah, that's where the
Like,
flyers
hang out in
are.
Bowling Green or
Yeah.
Selma. So he agreed, and they go to Dayton. Gertrude was like, oh, "What? All right, let's go."
And others here.
And so he still was pushing, like, okay, this metaphysical stuff is cool, but like I really still do want to help people with health. So he's doing more, remedies, and then they start,
Diagnoses,
yeah, and they
etc.
start getting weird with kind of the stuff of the day, like electrotherapy and UV light, and
So the diagnoses doesn't mean the cure is good.
right. So he's doing the diagnoses, or rather, sometimes he's just saying, "Here's the cure to whatever it is that
Really?
you're feeling from." Meaning, he's not necessarily saying, because a diagnosis is really half of the time just a name for a constellation of symptoms.
Mm.
It's just a name, but he is saying, "Oh, you're feeling this. Do this." Right? So one time, a guy showed up saying he had appendicitis, and again, this is all take it with a grain of salt, which is homeopathy. he says, you need to fuck with your back on these two vertebrae here. And he's like, what are you talking about? And it turns out it wasn't appendicitis. He had a pinched nerve in his back that was making him feel the pain in the stomach, that kind of thing.
It's pretty fucking deep, though, bro.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true.
No, I know, but I mean,
But it's a good story.
I'm just saying. I think you and I are both like high skeptical about anything metaphysical, whatever.
But I'm open, and I think as are you.
Yes, you have to be open, and I do think there is a thing of like,
some people are just a vessel for information to come through.
Yes, and I think a lot of
the
times
best art is that, right?
I think a lot of
watching
times
people play sports at a high level is that they are a conduit for the greatness.
Yes, I just think there's a thing where sometimes probably you and I would conflate somebody yearning for a metaphysical explanation as laziness.
Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
But instead, I think the real truth is that there's just an inherent human desire to find out more of the grid.
Totally.
And not a miraculous cure for anything.
Absolutely. Like we've talked about it before. I think we talked about it on the Patreon. 99% of astrology is bullshit. It's not going to tell you anything special predictively. But there is a mythology behind it. Right. And that's fucking interesting.
Yes, and there's a lot of accurate things in there, I would say.
Now,
not in a predictive way.
Sure. But then one has to get into all right, how much of that is under the veneer of birth date when it could be distilled down to something like birth order or birth age in relation to your peer group. So let's say I'm a Pisces, right? Means I'm born February 25th. Now,
means you're older than everybody.
In Western, at least in the United States and in Western educated, democratic, industrialized societies, school starts in like late August, September, and ends in May, June. And then you're put into a cohort based on your age. So now you're in a class with people who are all kind of within this age thing.
Some are younger, some
are younger, and some are older, and there's a pecking order.
But when you're growing up, some are bigger,
and some are. And if there are girls, they're age. So you get put into these groups that are not arbitrary, but they are not uniform. So me being a Pisces, whatever, I think has less to do with the way I interact with certain things. I think you could distill it down to more concrete, verifiable, experimental, and provable things other than just the pattern. The pattern is useful in terms of labeling, but it is not explanatory.
Sure, I just,
Yes.
Does it make sense what I'm saying?
It does.
Yes.
And I value that, and I value the archetypes behind it and the mythology behind it, but let's get real quick. And I was actually I was telling the people I was talking about earlier that inspired the episode, who will be listening. It's fine. But I was saying, like, okay, one time I was seeing this girl. I was hooking up with this girl who's mad into astrology. You know who it is. And she's really hot and really cool. And we're fucking like in bed, hanging out before things get crazy for the first time. And she pulls out a fucking astrology book. And she's looking at it, fucking schematics of the sky and angles and hours of the night and the moons in the house of the rising fuck. And she's like, I wonder if it's gonna do that. I'm like, well, why don't we just do it and find out? Now I'm like really not, like I'm less into it.
Yes.
Because now you're pulling out a book
that's gonna tell you.
Yeah, you want to know how to find out? Let's take our clothes off.
Of course. Yes.
Because that'll tell you right away.
Yes.
Or you can already have your mind made up by something else.
Definitely looking for a roadmap is very silly. I will say, for a thing that is commonly trounced as utter ridiculousness.
But it's really popular.
But there's a lot of stuff in there, dude, I gotta say, where I'm like, I'm always hyper skeptic, prove me all the way. There's a lot of astrology shit where I go like, okay, so, fucking my friend, my parents had the birthday book that was just like based on your son thing, your birthday, and my friend Jesse, Jesse, I love you. You're doing our merch. But it just said in the health section of her birthday, it was like, these people will have some kind of problem with their hands. And Jesse had arthritis like in her like early 30s, totally unheard of. My mom's was like, keep these people away from alcohol. You know, there was a lot of like hyper specific calls that are hyper specific to specific people where I have to go like, that's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but there is confirmation bias, and then you also ignore the times that it's wrong.
Yeah,
I don't. I will. You know that I don't.
This is a thing that we could talk about
Forever.
Yes, but I'm just saying that's the tipping point of doubt and belief, and you have to keep a clear mind on both.
Sure.
But for it to be like, and we'll move on after that because we're getting a little bit off. But if it was real, if there was any instance where that was false, it should negate the whole thing.
Right.
I believe that too,
and I don't believe that every person born in the house of the whatever, in the hour of the whatever, all has also something wrong, something up with their hands is vague enough.
I jack off all the time. Is that something wrong with my hands?
Is it vague enough?
It's vague because it's not.
Yes.
It's not
What
saying
is
they will
wrong?
have arthritis, or they will. But it is. Listen, and
They broke a finger?
and I'm going back. I will give it credit to for the time in which it was popularized, and it is a much more diluted version than what it was thousands of years ago. It was true enough because it all had a lot of it came about. Well, like listen, shit grows when it's
and the stars
sun
were,
is-
were what we used for guiding us. It was the stars.
We
were
lived
everything.
and died by the stars, and
Yes, and it was the greatest show on earth, which you and I say a lot.
Absolutely.
With everything going on with ancient aliens. And
absolutely.
if you were going to keep track of it, it would be much easier.
You had to, and
Yes.
it was much easier if you put a narrative to it.
Yes.
If you made
It's easier
it,
to understand that way.
and it's easier to pass along through the generations
Yes.
of people who can't read or write. If you have an oral tradition explaining that, for example, you could even make an argument the story of Christ is the story of the son's trip to the zodiac.
Yeah.
The virgin, the water bear, the ram, all this stuff. So
Yeah.
if you put a narrative of these things, then they make more sense. They're easy to pass along, and then you can grow crops and all that shit. But that's neither here nor there. But what I did want to say is that if you leave certain predictions vague enough, it's a lot easier for people to fit reality to it.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Give me an exception. Give me an
Absolutely.
exception to that.
An exception?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Or a prediction that you feel has merit ever in time.
Oh, like you mean like a supernatural prediction?
Yeah. Like something where you go like, oh, that's interesting.
I don't have an example.
For me, it's Nostradamus with the swastika and Hister. That is,
But it's not Hitler.
but it is,
But it's not Hitler.
but it is.
You get it?
Of course.
It still blows my mind that there's that, but the swastika is thousands and thousands of years old.
They have them in Burbank
Right,
because of
but
the
saying-
Buddhists.
Glendale too,
but
but
saying-
they're the correct orientation. Hitler flipped it around.
All right. It's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but it's not Hitler,
Right.
Sure.
right? And he also, like Edgar Cayce, had 14,000 readings. I think 9,500 of them are documented. You're gonna have a few hits. Listen, I'm open to the idea of people fucking crossing the line and tapping into something. And I'll get into more of that part later. But
Yeah. I think for me, the line of believability is the right-wrong quotient.
Fair enough.
I think
That's
you
fair.
would say the same.
I think that's fair enough because I think it's not a science.
No.
It's an art. It's working with mercury,
But it's not a science until it's a science.
right?
Okay,
That's also a thing.
And maybe, and this is me complimenting it and giving it a fair shake. Maybe it can't be. Maybe the nature of things like this is that it cannot be a science.
Yeah, but also there was a time when math was black-ass magic.
But it is reproducible and it's objectively uniform.
Right.
And it is teachable to anybody given sufficient mental maturity,
and
it doesn't change.
And it has been a
2 + 2
consistent.
will
There's a
always
back
be
to front.
4.
So consistency is the thing.
There's
I
a consistent,
agree.
but
Yes.
I'm going to get into it later, but a lot of this ties into what becomes remote viewing with the CIA. And
Mhm.
part of the reason they abandoned it is that they couldn't teach soldiers to do it, as well as just people who could do it.
Yeah.
And he might have been one of the proto-modern people who was doing remote viewing.
Damn.
We'll get into that. Should we take a break? You can sit on that.
Let's
Yeah,
take a quick
let's
break.
take a
I
break.
gotta pee. We'll be right back, folks. And we're back.
Hey,
Do you like that non-pee-pee?
yeah, I thought I was drinking the Mick Ultra and I was going to make an MK Ultra CIA joke, but instead I'm drinking the fucking coronavirus.
It's
seltzer.
it's pee-free pee-pee. And what I was gonna say to you was in the lexicon of belief and heresy, I think in the modern age there's not even a heresy market. I think an alternate version of a religious history is still belief, and that was something I came across in Ireland, where I'd have people that they thought they were being revolutionary by saying heretical things like Jesus Christ was wed to Mary Magdalene.
She was not a prostitute.
Yes, she was not a
There's no
prostitute.
evidence that she was.
They had children.
He had brothers and
he had
sisters.
siblings
right?
and all that stuff.
Casey talked about that.
And it was a thing where I was just kind of like, yeah, but this is all really still just buying in
To the idea that
to the thing of it being a big deal. But
you're fanficking the fanfic.
yeah, you're just
Right.
kind of going like, oh no, it wasn't how you say it went down, and it's
Actually, Peter Parker, his parents were.
right.
They weren't killed. He wasn't an orphan. They were actually spies
It's a
and
thing.
clones.
Yeah,
it's fanfic.
Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne was his own
and
dad.
it's conspiracy theory stuff applied to a thing where you go like, okay, but does it matter at all, or like, why did it matter to begin
Right.
with?
That's the question: is why does it matter, and how does that change the value system of the people that believe it, or does it at all?
Yes.
Because there is a reason that they are saying it. So, for example, for somebody to say that Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute and she was Christ's wife or most cherished, well, that does change the entire way that the church looked upon women.
Or is it
And the way that they see Christ as a
But,
more human
yeah.
figure. But that is an important change to make.
or is it a thing where it is she was a prostitute and then became his wife?
even that's important too.
That is very important.
Right.
But it's just a thing of going like, oh well, you know, it's like Christ is still the most important thing, but it's not like how they tell you. It's kind of like this, and it's same thing about like, you know,
Priests hate this guy.
Yeah,
It's
it's like-
one simple trick to salvation.
it's just like you go like, okay, but like, what does it mean to you? Why is it important to you that this be true? And why is it especially important to you that this be true in an alternate history way?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think you're getting away with? Or like, what do you...
Are you doing this because of what that new information says and does, or are you doing it because somebody told you?
Or is you're fitting your ideas into this as
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it self-congratulatory being like, well, I know the actual truth. And you're like, okay, well, what
well,
if
it might be and it might not be. It might be they have this they're fitting their beliefs into it and reframing it for their beliefs.
It's
And
very unlikely that any of it is the actual truth, but if it is the mythology of a culture, then it's the action, the repercussions that it has, or at least what it says about the culture is true. It's true enough that it says something about them.
right.
So in that sense, it's true enough, and it is.
In my opinion,
makes it relevant to them.
and this is a huge brush to draw over history for a stupid person. I'm gonna say this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say it was a thing that was going on during the Roman Empire, and it started as a small tumor, and then it spread throughout because the message was so powerful, and then Rome felt like we have nothing to do except take it
Embrace
as our
it.
own.
Resistance is futile.
Yeah,
It's
and
the
just
Borg.
be like,
it's pretty much
it
it's
was
pretty much-
Rome all along. Like,
I mean, in essence, that's kind of what happened. That probably happens with, with a lot of things.
The only way to curtail it is to own it and be like, oh, yes, this is completely correct. Like,
I mean, that's why Beanie Babies became popular, because the people who owned them were like, we got to sell these for a lot of money. Therefore, we need to make sure that they're popular
in the most
so we can sell them later.
opulent, bribey...
Don't shake your head at me, Aaron.
opulent, bribey society, like where you could like lure people with riches. These people are just like walking up naked to get fed by lions. It's like, okay, you're not going to bribe them.
The lions?
No, we're not going to bribe the lions unless it's with naked Christians.
The only thing you can do is take the
and make it fit your own.
And that was really what they did, apparently. After that, forevermore, the Bible was altered on a Caesar by Caesar basis to fit whatever was in vogue at the time.
Or an English king basis.
There's a great book called The Religion with No Name, and they talk about this syncretism specifically because the author speaks and reads and writes Greek, Arabic, English, and Latin. And so he breaks down French. Yeah, he's only for sure. But he breaks down the translation of certain things and certain words that John or Paul will say as he's selling the gospel to like Athens or in Damascus. And he says like, well, the reason that this is what it means. This is how it would be said in the original Greek. And this is why it relates to existing Greek mythology and how he's pitching the story of Jesus. Mark, sorry, not John, to the people of Athens by kind of giving this similar story to Dionysus. Sitting in the lap of God really translates to in God's thigh, and Dionysus was born and gestated inside Zeus's thigh. And so he's pitching the story of Christ to make it seem, it's a really good book. It's all about psychedelics and witches and death cults and early female shamans and how that becomes the communion and the Eucharist of modern day Christianity.
And
check that fucking
how
book
to
out.
pitch religion to your contemporaries.
Yeah, dude, it's good. I had
that sounds
a good old time reading it. All right. Are we back to Edgar Cayce?
We are.
Please.
I keep calling him Edward. I'm sorry.
Edgar Cayce.
Yeah, it's better than calling him N-word Casey. Is it not better?
It's way better.
Sorry.
Thank you.
He lets me say it.
Who?
Edgar.
Jesus?
So, he's doing these. He's talking to the guys, right? And he's starting to pitch some of these new therapies that are popular of the day, like the electrotherapy, ultraviolet light. But he's also pitching things like diet and massage. And he pitches this gives this kind of proto-Mediterranean diet that's very reasonable diet of the day.
We're talking like 1915, 1920?
25.
Okay, 1925. Okay,
he's also pitching gemstones, but he is talking about living a much more natural lifestyle with relaxation, good amounts of sleep. We can go over 9 tips of how to live a good life by Edgar Cayce. You know what? I'll do that right now, actually. How about this? Number 1, eat lettuce.
So good.
So good.
Full of water.
He said that
probably some fiber in there, right?
Plenty of lettuce should always be eaten by most everybody, for this supplies an effluvium in the bloodstream itself that is a destructive force to most of these influences that attack the bloodstream. It is a purifier.
Yeah.
Spend time outside. When is practical outside activities are advisable, of course, as for everyone, of course.
Yeah, okay. Checks out 2 for 2.
Wherever the body may be more in the open is better. Everybody should stay close to the earth. Very good. Take time to chew your food.
So you're saying he was anti-flight?
No.
Everybody should stay.
No.
Chew your food. So mastication.
That's right. Mastication. He actually says for each and everybody there should be thorough mastication. For if this is done, the activity of the glands in the mouth and salivary glands is such to keep the throat and bronchi in a much healthier condition. Bolting food or swallowing it by the use of liquids produces more colds than any one activity of a diet.
I would say that is something I had to really.
Chewing your food is good.
Pretty.
Yeah, but also just like in an enjoyment level of like putting your fucking fork down, not wolfing, just being
I can't.
Just being like.
Struggle.
I eat very slowly.
I mean, it's the most
myself.
American thing to do is to wolf, and I think you and I are both
house.
We can fucking house shit.
Yeah, but taking time to chew it and enjoy it is both good for your body and your mind, and your soul.
Not burdening your body with.
And just appreciate what you're eating. Take your fucking time.
Yeah.
And I'm just really telling myself to do that.
Yeah, I mean, really, the other thing is, it's something my
And
friend
you're-
Lindsay sent to me. Dodger's wife was like, she's like, that is a thing in France. Is like, put your fucking utensils down between bites.
And you start.
Enjoy
That
it.
is the first stage of
really is.
digestion, is chewing and
Yes.
saliva. That is when you're
Breaking it down.
Right. Take the burden off the your
Well, it's something that maybe we could talk about after. But how much of medicine and science until like, I don't know, 50 years ago, until 60, 70, maybe 100 years ago, was being right for the wrong reasons.
right.
Being like, chew your food because blah, but
Because the devil.
but also, yes, chew your food.
But that's
Go
because
outside.
they did not have the architecture or language
To test.
to explain sufficiently,
Yes.
so they just said God or whatever,
Right.
right?
They knew
Drink
these
plenty
things
of
first.
water.
Yes.
Relax. There should not be an overtaxing of the body, and there should be periods of relaxation, as there must be in everyone's experience.
Mm.
Exercise. It is well that every body takes exercise to counteract the daily routine activity as to produce rest. Walking is the best exercise for this body, preferably in the evening.
Can
A
you
nice
blame 'em?
after meal walk, huh?
I mean,
Very European.
they're coming out of those years of pedestrianism. They know how cool walking is.
Use olive oil.
Yeah.
Use olive oil.
use olive
Nice.
oil.
I like the specificity of that.
Olive oil is good for anybody. Just take what the body will assimilate.
I do think relaxing is actually a modern thing that is very hard to do.
Well, because we have to force ourselves to relax.
It's hard for the modern person to do. Is what you
Yes,
mean. Yes.
I do. I really,
Yes.
I really feel like it really
It
is.
is not built. The system does not.
My dad would.
You can be lazy or slovenly or
and
sloth-like,
that's still not
but that's not relaxation.
right.
You're always thinking about the next job would work or whatever.
Right.
It's-
And
Yeah,
maybe that's why
yeah.
you're slovenly.
I don't know if
Yeah.
like it was my mom being more anxiety ridden or something like that. Like even at a young age, like real young, like between 6 and 8, I remember my dad telling me like, relax.
Mhm.
And I was looking at him going like,
What does that even mean?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know who you are.
Like and I think probably like he was like 10 years older than my mom, like grew up in like an Ireland or whatever. I was like, I was like, oh, you probably know how to do that better than as the years go on. I think it just becomes like a thing of like, okay, what about this and what about this and like, what am I gonna do when I grow up and like all that stuff. It
Yeah,
just-
well, you're so as a kid, especially here, you're so eager to grow up.
yes,
And what are you relaxing from? Right?
yeah, and like what are you supposed to do and like all that shit and it's like
modern, metropolitan living is so fucking fast paced and
yes.
Well, you can't take a break at work unless you smoke cigarettes.
or drink coffee.
But
Right,
in
so, yeah.
Stimulants.
in all honesty, the answer is relaxing
because you'll be you'll be better when
because
you come back.
in that relaxation moment, you'll actually figure out what you are, who you
Mhm.
are, the person you are, what you believe in.
And you're more productive when you come back.
yes,
Yeah.
Use olive oil, care for your digestive system,
Mm.
and get a good night's sleep.
Those are every single thing he listed are things you could do today that would make you feel better.
6 to 7 hours is good enough for anyone, and yet under the stress and strain, some may require 10 to 12.
Yeah.
John?
So, the only thing my dad told me, he's like, I don't worry about you at all. He goes, I think you can handle the world, but man, you just love sleeping. I was like,
You
dude,
said it, man.
you said it, neighbor.
So he's doing these remedies, and they were coming under the scrutiny of the American Medical Association, which is pretty new.
Yes.
And he
Another cult of made up rules. Well, we think lead is good.
right, but
but
it was a consortium of best practices at the time.
if you
course,
if
yes.
you remember in the Brinkley episode, the American Medical Association, the guy who ran that was
John Brinkley is the guy that transplanted goat testicles into human scrota.
Yes.
the guy who was in charge. I think he maybe even the first guy in charge of it was the guy who went after Brinkley, and because
Was it Ansel Keys?
it wasn't
No,
Ansel Keys.
The
no.
Ansel Keys was FDA. I think.
Okay. But the American, yes, they weren't always right, but they were one of those first organizations.
Yeah, they
that
were at
seemed
least
to have,
trying to get to a consensus,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
the best thing you can say about any
Yeah.
medical
and
community.
what you want from your government.
Yeah, it's
medical
what you want.
association.
People being like,
Let's all agree. Let's at least outlaw. Can we all agree on what the bad stuff is? Right.
all we're trying to do is be the least wrong.
Right. And
That's
it's better than the chaos going on.
Yeah.
He has the voice. The entity tells him to move to Virginia Beach.
Nice.
He meets these industrialists, these bankers, New York guys, Morton, Edwin Blumenthal, and at the time they're losing Edwin's wife's money in bad trades, and they want to ask Cayce, like, yo, give us some advice financially, and we'll also we'll stake your vision for Virginia Beach, basically.
Cool.
So he does some vision stuff, dream prophecy,
Predictions about the market.
predictions,
He goes
the
to Lucid.
crypto.
cryptozoology, currency. So they they buy him a giant house in Virginia Beach, which is just kind of basically like a nowhere resort town back then. It's still a resort town now. And they becomes basically like a hospital and place of scientific study of the readings, meaning
People can go there, get a free reading,
and
and then the reading will be examined.
yes,
That's very
right.
good.
So there seems to be a pattern of this diagnosis
Fascinating.
and this treatment, like fucking oil of smoke's coming up a lot. Is there? Kate, he really, it seems like he fucking had no clue what
science.
they're like. All right, let's see if there's something to the gibber. It's a form of divination.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I go into this trance. I spit out this bullshit.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a pattern here.
He's the tea leaves.
Let's at least break down the tea leaves. Let's see what they say. Right. So that's admirable. And they even got like the head of psychology at Washington and Lee University to join the association. They built a lecture hall, a library, a vault for the storage of the readings, offices for research workers.
So was he making these guys money? Because it sounds like they have a bunch of money.
He was.
Okay.
I think that funded it. Is like his predictions.
That's right.
Okay.
His advice under trance was successful enough to fund this stuff.
Okay, that's fascinating.
I don't have specifics, but
And then the thing it's funding is a thing that is meant to doubt him.
yeah. So it's,
He's building like a fail-safe thing to be like, is this shit worth anything? And it's funded by money that shows he's
It's
definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
12-car garage, servants' quarters, tennis court, and it became. It had the largest lawn between Cavalier and Cape Henry.
I love those metrics.
Well, Master Cayce, I suppose I'll throw out these nipple clamps and anal beads.
Wait, the entity is saying to keep them.
Never mind.
Throw them in the vault.
It's the largest nipple clamp between here and California.
They opened it in 1928. In 1930, they also made beachfront Atlantic University, which was a small little kind of, again, research little situation for his stuff.
And in what year is this again?
27, 28, and 30.
That is too early to be doing this in the South, and for my money.
Well, you have a lot of money. You can.
Yeah,
do
but
whatever you
I'm
want
just
then.
saying.
But people were, the spiritualism.
You're
and
right. You're
that
right.
stuff. This is the
crossed
time,
into
and this is the roaring 20s.
yeah.
And people that the people that have money
Yeah.
to do it, and you're making them some.
Yeah. I guess Virginia is northern enough too. Like you're not doing it in fucking Savannah.
Yeah, Virginia's
Right. I
legalizing
mean, it
weed
was.
and shit.
Yeah.
So he, like I said, he noticed that there were consistent remedies for many of the illnesses, regardless of the patient, and
Stop
so
being an
he
idiot.
started trying to make a compendium or a collection of all this knowledge and see if there's something to it.
Example.
Well, that's where his eight rules come from, right?
No, the 8 rule. I mean, they collaborated with some chemists to make something called atomidine, which was an absorbable form of iodine, which was perfected and sold on the market.
Oh.
For
And I mean, iodine now is sold as a supplement, usually for radiation protection and thyroid health. That's why your salt, iodized salt, Natural sea salt does not have iodine. Iodine is a crucial nutrient for your health. You can get a goiter if you don't have enough iodine in your system. That's why iodized salt is one of like the big. It's like vitamin D milk.
I remember as a kid there was like ibuprofen, peroxide, and witch hazel, and then there was a tiny tincture of iodine.
Yeah, iodine is also an anti. You know, when they scrub you up for surgery, they put iodine.
Yes. It was like you could use any of them, and if I couldn't find the other ones, I would use iodine if I had a cut or something, or scraper or bruise or something.
Yeah,
and it was always yellow. It was
always
dark,
orangey,
dark yellow.
But it's also like I said, it's a vital nutrient. So the other therapies, salt packs, poultices, hot compresses, magnetism, vibrator treatment, massage, osteopathic manipulation, dental therapy, colonics, enemas, antiseptics, inhalants, homeopathics, essential oils, mud baths, etc., herbs, witch hazel, magnesia, bismuth, alcohol, castor oil.
What was the vibrator treatment?
Why don't I show you?
Some
Laudanum.
Laudanum?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the Blumenthal's were investing like $8,000 a month in the center. But even though by 1931, even though Cayce predicted the crash of 29, they were up $1 million.
No.
They withdrew support in 31.
Well, you know when you stop listening to a guy is when he tells you that all the money you're making, right? It's like,
So
I think you resent it. I think you resent accuracy, and you go like, man, fuck that.
You're saying it's gonna crash? You're full of shit.
I made this money myself. You know what? Fuck you. You're a
now you're trying to stop me from making more.
Because it's personal at that. Like they took it personally as opposed to
So during the Depression years, he focused more back more on spiritual teachings as opposed to healings. So more just how to advance your soul, kind of like spiritual practice as opposed to physical ailments and stuff like that.
Well, that was the time too. It was the thing of like, look.
You can see that material doesn't matter.
You're not going to get any lettuce then.
And also, like, we're all fucking like.
You can see that you're starting to see that the material wealth and world around you is useless.
Bullshit.
But a meal would be nice. So, people around him started asking how they could become psychic like him. And then, that simple question kind of led to him starting courses on this kind of spiritual growth stuff as opposed to it's not really teaching people to become psychic, and that's not the goal. It's just to become a more spiritually aware, more loving person, in his words. A lot of stuff about like dream analysis, which is very Freudian, synchronicity and coincidence, developing your intuition, like lectures and stuff on karma and the Akashic records, past life stuff, other esoteric subjects, which were very, very popular at the time. This is around the time of Madame Blavatsky, Peter Uspensky, like theosophy. All that stuff is big at the time and not totally worthless. Like the Waldorf school came out of the theosophy movement, and they have a great way.
Without question. And I do think there is, like I said, a lot of time when you're just on the farm where there's a lot more imagination and you can see a lot more things.
Learn by playing as opposed to, rote memorization.
Yeah, I do think you're a lot more exposed to just the great unknown.
And the real majesty of existence. Like if you're out in the fields and you see, oh man, the way that the spirals of this flower look, and then you see it again on an insect shell, then you don't need a book to tell you that.
Sure.
You just see it, and that's a much more natural, organic, and magical way of kind of learning truths about the world.
Sure.
And that's part of not just theosophy in the Waldorf school, but just learn by doing in general. When you find things on your own in a real impactful way to you, as opposed to reading it in a book or being told it, it's that much more real.
Yes, and I do also think there's a thing too, like, putting the kids to work on the farm and stuff like that. There's a thing where they are, going out and like, they're figuring things out, and they're growing up faster because they have like real responsibilities.
And you're seeing life and death.
And you're also seeing your parents, and you're going like, fucking, I know I don't know anything, but also like, it's just the 5 of us here, and I am kind of a fucking expert on your relationship. So like, I also kind of know the way to come in and like add something to the room that will make, if there's disharmony, the thing that will make you guys fucking like get along. Like, like kids like are not. Like,
and even if it's not, it's probably 10.
Yeah.
And because there's probably some extended family there.
Sure.
And that's even more productive and natural as opposed to just like the 4 of us.
Yes.
But yet, being out there and seeing, the miracle of life and the reality of death informs you on the cycles of the world.
Still the stars the whole time.
And still the stars the whole time.
Yeah.
It is a much more natural way for the human animal to learn.
And I do think there are some of those people that are really hypersensitive and do see some weird shit.
Yeah.
I've never been one of them. I always would have loved to. But like, I still think there's some of those people that like are like that girl that got possessed in Germany where they prosecuted the priest with her parents for negligence and
what
stuff.
became Emily Rose.
What became Emily Rose. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that could be, just straight up mental illness, fine, but like,
and also you can call it that.
You can call it that,
right?
You can. You're defining it as an illness because it is something that is detrimental to the person within the system that you've created for them to live in.
Right.
If you're, if you're in a small group of 50, they probably would not be exhibiting the same symptoms, and they also would not be as terrifying to you or terrified of you, and it wouldn't express the same way.
Right.
It would just be weird, and they'd probably bring something to the table.
Yes.
Getting to the shaman thing.
Oh, yes, the shaman thing about where they...
Schizophrenia.
They don't have the harmful schizophrenic things in what you're saying was the Aboriginal world.
Yeah, in a lot of... In some of the non-Western and non-industrialized cultures, the people that have schizophrenia, the voices in their... Or paranoid schizophrenia, the voices in their head
A benevolent
are
and...
funny little, mischievous sprites, as opposed to everyone's trying to fucking kill you.
It's the stuff we see in American entertainment, but is not in American life.
Right. It's just the the soup that you're in dictates the flavor of your being.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Of your being?
I don't know. I didn't know how to put it, but like, the people
I know what you mean.
You're marinating in some fucked up shit here, as opposed to, being in a different soup in the wild. So
sure. So here's what I'm saying, because I think,
dude, I know that made no sense. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm usually really good at that.
You're soaking it up.
No, what I'm going to say to you is, I mean, do you think you can take yourself out of yourself enough to empathize with other people that would be a lot less hard science as you, especially in the case of some of these people that will be like, I feel like I am more susceptible to spiritual shit taking me over in a way of like that Emily Rose girl or this guy or whatever. Like, can you actually be like...
My first reaction is you just want to seem special, right? Because I think in this culture, we reward people who seem special.
Right. But how much of that is us reflecting on us? Because I feel the same way.
Sure. But for every one person that is, I think there's 9 who are delusional here in this pool.
Yeah.
But do I believe that there are people who have their radio dials just a little bit off? And for some people, it manifests as paranoid schizophrenia. Some it manifests as, sensitive to a little bit different information. Of course. And the thing about science is there's a way to test and prove that.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't have it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a way. You just have to recognize. There's a difference from just observing, and then there's a way to really. All right, let's understand it.
Of course.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a limit to that.
And also a way to...
There's probably a limit to the scientific method for things that cannot be reliably reproduced.
But
So I'm aware of that. Yeah.
I know, but the person that is the one that is saying, the story is not over or the deal is not sealed. they're the ones that are going like, okay, for instance, and I think you and I think all of us both know is the fire in the sky guys.
That guy's still alive.
They all fucking passed the same lie detector test. They all said the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all like boring, regular
Lumberjack
dudes.
shit. Yeah.
They are not guys looking for attention.
Yeah.
So there's that thing where you go like, okay,
still alive, still just doing.
I'm open minded once you start there. Like, I mean, these are not people that are like, starting a store on Sunset Boulevard selling crystals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no impetus for them to be
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to be interesting.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the question is,
But the thing
what
is-
is it that happened?
But also, what do you buy? I think you and I agree. I buy that more questions are necessary.
Absolutely.
And that's it. It's like, I don't need to jump from that fence to the, oh, well, then they're going to invade in 2 years.
right.
I don't need to, because that's the thing. It's like a lot of the believer people will go to
They just add a whole bunch of other shit on top of it.
Go
right.
to this nth degree where you're like,
Well, let's acknowledge that this happened, and then let's go from there.
yeah, let's start
As
with,
opposed to Christ is coming.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yes, that is a very big issue. But also, the people, it's the train of conspiracy.
yeah, there's always
Because
just
but also is that born out of the fact that they're told they're weird for that initial thing, and then that forces them into further down the road conspiracy.
I think it's
And
there's
if we could have an acceptance of, hey, weird shit happens, and maybe you have, and that's fine.
But I think there's an enforcement of belief among the public that there is a scientist that either is open-minded or not. And that is not true.
Right.
The truth is that all scientists are really bred to be open-minded to like, okay, well, look at all this data and tell me I'm wrong. And that applies to everything from alien abduction to cannabinoids being good for your health.
right, and even what we were talking about with like the Sphinx and the pyramids and being older and stuff, like even then their skepticism of the older age of
Older.
their skepticism is right.
Yes.
You have to have an abundance of evidence to overturn the overwhelming evidence that it matches with everything else we know. And I looking up this because Edgar Cayce had a lot of readings. He would go on to do stuff about Atlantis and Egypt. Recent stuff about the Sphinx. Because limestone is made up of fossilized like plankton and other living creatures, they matched up a lot of the type of limestone of the pyramid complex to the quarry that the Sphinx was carved out of.
Right.
Whoa.
Just read that today, and so now I'm all right. There we go.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
they know where Stonehenge, they know
Where it came out,
quarries,
and so they
all of
matched
that.
up a lot of that. So
So do you want to give the
pitch that we talked about in the
predictions? Or?
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so anyways, here I'll wrap up his life real quick because the rest of it's pretty boring.
He fell down a hill.
Stock market crashed, removed the funding. He started just kind of doing doing the teachings and giving kind of metaphysical self-help shit, right? And he was getting truckloads of letters a day from people, and he'd still do diagnoses and treatments and all that. But it was really about they formed the ARE. Forget the name of the center, but
American something.
probably. It doesn't matter. It's still around today. I'll just go to edwardcayce.org. You'll find out what the fucking name is. It's not important.
America's rectal
Association.
exam.
It's an Association for Research and Enlightenment. Great,
Oh.
great name. Monthly bulletin, readings, all that.
Rectal exam.
But he was doing, like 9 and 10 sessions a day by the end,
He's
and it was
falling
just too
asleep
much
all
for
day.
him. And then he was arrested and convicted in Detroit for practicing medicine without a license, released on probation. Then he was working with family members of soldiers fighting in World War II. Yeah.
So
he
wait, is it so he just so he was just traveling around doing shit?
Well,
at that
he
point.
wasn't traveling as much anymore. He was operating in Virginia Beach and Dayton. He wasn't traveling doing this. He had.
But he's arrested in Detroit.
All right, he was there.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a joke. He predicted his own death.
Nice.
He said, "I'm going to be buried in 5 days." He died 3 days later.
Whoa.
When they bury him, though.
2 days after that.
Nice.
Ah.
Those are the rules.
You know, he had there are 120,000 pages of readings that you can go dig through. He had a lot of predictions. Stock market crash 29 on 2 separate occasions, first in February 25 and then months before the event in March.
Jesus.
In 35,
Christ.
he predicted how World War II would unfold, describing an unprecedented alliance between the Germans, Austrians, and Japanese. He also predicted the whole world will be set on fire by militaristic groups, and the American loose alliance with Russia to defeat that, the Axis powers. He also said, he would say things like this: all souls were created in the beginning, all spirit of one spirit, spirit of God. That spirit manifests in flesh. That spirit manifests in all creation, whether of earthly forces or universal forces, all spirit being one spirit. And he would say things like, spirit is the life, mind is the builder, and the physical is the result. Does that sound at all familiar?
Yes. What is that?
So what I would say is that is pretty close to what we know about quantum physics.
Would you mind repeating it again?
Spirit is the life, mind is the builder, and the physical is the result. So Max Planck, or Planck, you might know the Planck's constant. Max Planck is the father of quantum physics. Heisenberg to a degree, but Max Planck. Max Planck said, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we record as existing, postulates consciousness. Mm-hmm. As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms this much. There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. The mind is the matrix of all matter. That is Max Planck, father of quantum physics.
Yeah. I hear something along those lines from, I think, a lot of scientifically minded and spiritually minded people, where they say that the crossroads of everything is consciousness.
Yeah, it's
everything from meditation.
Still don't know how it works.
To matter,
right?
and but that it is just there's something about I am behind everything.
Mhm.
What would you have without consciousness?
Well, that's the thing is that Norm Macdonald says, he's like, the reason people are like, why are you religious? And he goes like, I can't imagine nothing.
Right.
He's like, imagine nothing. I dare you. And I'm like, that's a pretty good point. He's like, where would it be? Where would it come from? What does it look like?
When has there ever been nothing?
Well, yeah, Terence McKenna says that the science's biggest where science breaks down, and I don't necessarily believe this, but it's a great way to put it, is but regarding the Big Bang, he says, well, grant us one miracle and we'll explain the rest.
Exactly.
And that's fine.
Pretending like the miracle didn't happen.
And it is a miracle.
And acting like it's not a big deal. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But just because it's a miracle doesn't mean it's not science.
Right. It just means it hasn't been explained yet.
Right.
And I think it's a little off topic, what they're finding out now is that it may be a cycle of big bangs until there is enough nothingness that a bang happens. It's great.
Pure
Sir
luck.
Roger Penrose, I think you just want to.
The miracle is the luck.
And I think it might not be very miraculous. It might happen all the time.
Right. Yeah. We don't know if there's any other galaxies that.
And so I think Sir Roger Penrose just won a Nobel Prize based on that.
And it's also a thing too, where you go like, if we look at it on a galactic level, we could only be aware of one Enlightenment era and not at all understand the Dark Age.
Right. We can only see
of the universe.
I mean, the reason that we postulate the universe is 13.5 billion years old is because that's the amount of light that has reached us.
yes.
Yeah.
We just can't see further back anymore.
And we don't know the bad times.
And we can see
And
places.
they might have been good times.
We can see places that
good times.
could hold life as we know it, and we don't know how far that life is because we don't know anything other than the fact that it could be there.
Wait.
to say.
I missed what you were saying. What?
So we can see all of these galaxies, or we can see planets that are Earth-like.
Well, and if we look back far enough, they're not there anymore
Right.
because it's
By the time we see it,
all we see of the stars are all floating.
but we can see that life could be there, but we don't know what stage it is. And we don't. We just know
you
that.
can. Well, you can you can extrapolate.
But anyway, that's anyway. That's a whole other fucking thing.
So this gets into kind of there was a guy I was watching a talk that this guy's a big scholar on Edgar Cayce, and his name's Stephen A. Schwartz, and he was he was one of the architects of the fucking remote viewing program with the CIA and the DoD, Operation Stargate, and it's got a couple other names for the non-militaristic purposes. And he was saying, the question that
What year would that be?
70s,
Yeah.
70s, and I think maybe the very beginning of the 80s, but basically the 70s. And remote viewing,
Psychic vision.
it's psychic vision where they would get people and they'd fucking throw them in a room and they'd be like, go find the nuclear silo.
yeah.
And they were training people to do this. And they had a much greater than chance hit rate. A lot. And they selected certain people for certain reasons, and they tried to hone this tactic, come up with a rubric or a format to follow to do it. And part of the reason that they stopped was that it didn't seem like they could just teach soldiers to do it. It's kind of it's why Steve Rogers is Captain America and there weren't any more. He was just special.
Yeah.
And they couldn't you can't just give the super soldier serum to anybody. And it seems like
Yeah, it was also, I think, the organization was not into
democratizing this thing.
but also trying to believe in the idea that
No, they wanted to try everything.
they did, but to follow through on it.
Well, if it really worked, meaning if they really could teach soldiers to do it,
Yeah.
then they would do it.
Oh, they would. Absolutely.
And the thing is, they
I completely
couldn't.
agree.
They couldn't, and that's it. Man, we should talk. Man, we'll talk about Captain America and all this shit.
But they wouldn't be curious enough to explore why it worked with some people and not others because
Right, because at this point, if it doesn't matter why it doesn't work with some people and others, it just matters that we can't teach soldiers to do it.
Right.
true.
There seems to be an inherent gift, distributed through the population for one reason or another. Part of it is belief. And
I completely agree.
the other way to look at it is that it all might have been partially a disinformation campaign to tell the Russians that we were doing it.
Sure. And even if it wasn't, it was turned into one.
So, look up Project Stargate. It's a real thing that the government did with remote viewing. And so the idea is...
Read The Men Who Stare at Goats. It's like that whole thing.
Yeah,
is-
read that. But also, I think it's called Phenomena by Amy Jacobson. Or it might be just called... Amy Jacobson wrote a few books. One's on UFOs in Area 51. And one's on Operation Paperclip. And the other is CIA Stargate. Remote viewing. All great books. But the question that comes to mind is when you're in this room and they tell you to fucking find the guy in the prisoner of war camp or find the nuclear whatever. Okay, now all right, your eyes closed and you're doing this kind of astral projection thing, and then you're seeing and you write down on the paper and you're drawing and you're writing down coordinates. And you say, okay, I see a building and it's shaped like a diamond and it's there's a thicket of trees over here on the right. The question that it begs is whose point of view is that?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like
Where's the camera lens? What's the eyeball?
Sure.
From what vantage point are you getting this information?
Sure.
And that is the same thing with Cayce.
with reading astrology.
In like, okay, you're because he would do stuff like that. He would look back in time and do past life regression. So what is this vantage point? And he wasn't in a true trance. He wasn't asleep. And the same thing with remote viewers. They were not in. It usually took them 10 or 15 minutes to get into the zone.
It makes me think of it's almost lucid dreaming of sorts.
But it's not You're not asleep.
Even with lucid dreaming, you're not completely
you're asleep in lucid dreaming.
But there's this idea of,
agency.
It's a step beyond meditation where it's really tough to let your brain go. And once you get used to the feeling of it, what is that next thing?
Right. Yes. So lucid dreaming.
Did they have an idea of who they were?
Who?
The ones doing the...
Did the government... Well, I'm sorry. What is your question?
Did, like, Edgar and those guys, did they have an idea of what their vantage point was in those situations? Did they have a guess?
So what Edgar Cayce said was that he was kind of tapping into the universal... the mind, the universal spirit, universal subconscious.
He thought he was total fly on the wall. He didn't think...
Well, what it really is that you're just one avatar of this one thing.
Right.
Right, which is very, Christ-like, which is, there's the Father and the Spirit and the Son, and it's all the same thing, just an expression of it.
Right.
And that was what Christ was trying to tell people, is that we're all, listen, man, I'm just realizing it. We're all the Father,
yeah.
We're all the thing, and we're just different fingers on the same hand, right?
Yeah.
And so Cayce was tapping into just that universal mind. And so is that what the remote viewers were doing, was tapping into the universal observer of quantum physics?
Right.
I don't fucking know.
Or was the odds of all of these people doing it, odds are enough of them in a room, some of them are going to get close enough to be pushed to the next level, that they were enough people in a room guessing where things could be.
They weren't in a room together guessing.
Well, not together, but enough people doing it, I suppose.
Yeah.
How many of them could...
They came up with a system and a method that worked for certain types of people.
Well, it's like with Edgar's rules. Those are all good rules.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he think of those rules because they were scientifically correct, or because he just kind of noticed they were correct?
Right,
so
that's the thing. I don't think his rules were really psychically driven.
And so the people
making
the people making these predictions,
Common sense depending on the time.
Yeah, and place. But I mean, you ask anybody in Greece for the past 5,000 years what to do, they'll tell you eat lettuce, olive oil, and take a lot of naps and relax.
go for a walk.
True.
It's not that special, but that's not to discount anything.
But he's put together the clues of people he's seen who are healthy, or life that he knows that is healthy. And so maybe if you have enough people and the CIA is asking them, where could a thing be? Someone's going to have some idea.
Big place, man.
Yes, but it also can be a small place.
This argument breaks down.
No, but if some people might have a better idea where things could be than others, and
they got really specific. Meaning the remote viewers?
I'm just throwing some people.
Dude, they got some Red Brigade guys, bro.
And
like
how
were
those same people always correct, or were they correct sometimes and sometimes they weren't?
Wait, you're saying naturally they were correct on locations of people?
Well, because maybe it was,
No, this is getting back to what we were saying before the break, which was it's not a science, and that's the problem.
Right.
It may be an art form, and that's why the government...
Or more.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, an art form, meaning it cannot be standardized until you really figure out who and why some people are better at it than others, or why it works with some people better than others, and why it cannot be...
And I'm not saying it's shysterism. I'm just saying some people, maybe they just have a better understanding of how things could be. Are they all guessing?
I mean...
No, they're not.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
They're not guessing.
Exactly.
No, that's what I'm saying too. I think there are some people that are kind of gifted that way, and I think if Edgar was around and he didn't actually have a school of how to guide people that were that way inclined, probably could have been really good. I do think there's people that are not looking for attention but are remarkably gifted in ways that we think are jerk-offy.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly do.
I mean, I think there's something there, but I don't.
But yeah,
yes, it's both. Do I think that Edgar kind of just had to start leaning into his own mythos and start yeah, man, I can't just keep telling people to put poultices on. Even
Yeah, I think there's something where he's actually like, there's some people that do this shit and they should know how to harness it, and I do.
But he was also saying that's not the point. Is not to go into trance and heal. The point is to advance your own spiritual well-being.
But that is also something the spiritually gifted person would say. It's
Well,
the point is that I don't have to give you the answer. The point is that you should come up with the answer yourself.
Of course,
sure.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he's not scared. Totally does not take away from his own.
So Edgar Cayce predicted the financial collapse a couple of times.
Right.
How many times did he not predict it?
Markets always collapse.
I mean, how many times did he not predict?
But
he's doing what, 10, 15 a day? So in the volume of all of these
when
things,
people had to ask him the question.
right? But in the volume of all of these things, at what point does he just get tired of the things he's already said? And then in the record of everything he said, well, you're not going to point out the things that he didn't.
No, totally. You're gonna hit sometimes if you're giving out 14,000 readings, right?
Right.
History.
Your argument is way in league with.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. We're saying a lot of the same shit, but do you want to hear some of his bullshit ones?
Yes.
Well, yeah, of course.
He claimed that the history of humankind went back some 10 million years. Objectively false. We have not been humanoid. We have not been Homo sapiens for 10 million years.
How long have we been humanoid?
At best, 2. More likely, 500,000. Homo erectus.
That's a little short for a guy that believes in ancient Egypt.
Well, his ancient Egypt was like, it wasn't 10 million years.
Sure. I'm just saying.
His ancient Egypt was probably like 20.
Okay.
He said, according to Edgar, 5 human races had been created separately but simultaneously on different parts of the earth: white, black, red, brown, and yellow.
No, those were the colors of the rainbow back then.
Yep. He also accepted the existence of aliens in Atlantis, which also not disproven.
Atlantis underwater.
No. Well,
it could be anywhere these days. You never know.
So his Atlantis stuff has hits and misses. He claimed that the red race developed in Atlantis and its development was rapid. He said that soul entities on Earth intermingled with animals to produce things such as giants that were as much as 12 feet tall. China would be overwhelmingly Christian by 1958.
Well, another couple of years, it'll get there.
New York would be destroyed by cataclysm and California would fall off into the ocean.
Well, have you seen de Blasio's reign?
Yeah, man. You said it.
Thank you.
He said that in the 60s, I think 68, a death ray from Atlantis would be rediscovered. And
68?
Atlantis would rise. Yes, that's right. Armageddon would happen in 1999. A Hall of Records would be found under the Sphinx.
I like the specificity of that, though.
And then he also said, prophecy is never given for any other purpose than as a warning. For this reason, a successful prophecy is one that has been inverted and therefore does not happen.
That's
nailed it.
There you go. There you go. That it is. So listen, man. Here's a deal, man. And I think there's been characters like this in movies before. It's kind of like the John Constantine thing. And I think that there's been a couple other characters where they do have some gift.
Yeah.
But the nature of their reality and the market and the pressures put on them, that they have to amp it up and embellish the natural, unreliable talent that they have. And that can, rightfully so, make them seem like a charlatan. Because of the burdens and the pressure placed and the expectations placed upon them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But I do, and I think there is a thing too.
Michael J. Fox in the movie The Frighteners.
Yes.
Peter Jackson's The Frighteners.
Sure.
He could see ghosts and shit, and he became a ghost hunter, but he would just have his ghost friends come haunt the place.
Yes.
And exorcise them.
Do you think that extends to something like that CIA program where all of these people have...
Nope.
They're in this pressure to...
No, because it worked.
You're saying that worked.
It worked.
But if it worked, wouldn't they keep doing it?
Read it. Freedom of information request. The fucking drawings.
But you're gonna be a skeptic about everything else.
I am skeptical about all of it.
Okay.
Absolutely. But there is more documentable evidence of it working. And I don't mean, it's not like, dude, it's fucking, this is the land.
It sounds like more paper reports if it's more documentable evidence. You know what I mean?
The latitude and longitude, and then they went and found the thing.
Sure.
But the problem is, it is very Hister, not Hitler.
Well, I mean, yeah, also
it is very fuzzy. And that's part of the problem of it. Getting back to my postulation is that it's more of an art form and not a science.
But it is not nothing.
It is not
and
nothing.
That is the thing. Is that in that fucking.
So when I say it works, that's what I mean. Is that there's a pattern around the bullseye. There's a distribution pattern, and it's closer to the bullseye than not.
The third, grade Satan out of Nostradamus' thing is
from the Middle East.
He's from the Middle East and launches the attack, gives the longitude latitude of New York. And that was when my dad walked out on it in like the 80s.
But
and
is Osama bin Laden the great Satan?
No. But also the first one was Napoleon.
Yeah.
And the second one was Hister.
Right.
So you go like, okay, well, those three are already, even those two are automatically not on the same category.
That's probably the name of his that's the name of his maid back then. He was just angry for a day.
But again, it was one of those things of okay, well, he wasn't wrong about.
And it doesn't say New York; it says the new city.
Yes, and
every city's new
with the longitude and latitude, though.
There was no latitude and longitude. What?
Yeah, I believe it. That was part of the thing in the
Orson Welles one.
The Orson Welles one.
I don't know about that.
I don't think he knew about longitude.
Yeah,
and latitude.
I don't think they.
That was the part where my dad said he walked out because he thought it was so absurd.
And
then after 9/11, he was like, "I need to go find that fucking thing." So he had me go find it, and I was like,
I think on the next Patreon we're gonna have to, because I remember digging into this a little bit and seeing that it was not. I think they took some liberties.
Oh, really? With the narration or something?
Yeah.
Orson Welles? No.
Yeah.
No.
The Arabs.
You're saying they took advantage of a fat drunk man behind a desk
who's
with a cigar.
Or even Orson Welles taking advantage of the public? I don't believe it. I don't.
But I do remember. I remember seeing that in high school, junior high.
You do?
Oh, totally. We've talked about it. I remember seeing it.
So
that was like how I got turned on in Nostradamus.
Yeah.
And him having they dug up his grave and it had the date that they would dig him up.
but that's in the same thing with this Casey guy. I almost think of Nostradamus in the same thing where I guess I don't automatically assume charlatan.
I don't assume a charlatan.
No, I don't.
A lot of times I think like a hypersensitive person. I'm glad I'm not. Where they do have a multitude of predictions that can be true or false based on how people interpret them.
And you got, and so many, and he was also in this kind of Renaissance era where magic was turning into alchemy, as opposed to in our era. This is kind of spiritualism and science. Like he was kind of a crossing of those eras too.
Yes.
So. He's one of those guys, like, I'm trying it out. I'm burning some herbs in my dish, and I'm inhaling it, and I'm writing the shit down that I see.
And there's things
I'm not saying it's gonna happen.
It's kind of similar to the Civil War II thing, where the guy, he has...
Marvel's Civil War II?
Yes, he has the multitude of outcomes, but he's just a hypersensitive psychic, and so he can see this one where, Spider-Man gets killed or whatever, and he's like, oh, this is gonna... And, like, people are, like, acting like...
Oh, no, Secret Empire.
No, that was Civil War II.
Oh, not where Miles Morales.
It was the Inhuman kid.
Oh, yeah.
And his power was a prediction.
Yep.
And people were taking it literally.
Right.
And I think...
It's one of many possibilities.
I think in the case of guys like Cayce and Nostradamus, there was a thing where they were like... Honestly, I do believe they were like hypersensitive to some kind of extra-dimensional shit, and they could see it all.
Sure.
And they were just kind of like, it's this, or that. And they were like... I don't know what you guys want to do, but here's what's coming up,
And I think in any good mystic or diviner is going to say...
Pleads ignorance.
Yeah. Like, I'm just dude, this is what I saw.
Otherwise you're a magician.
And otherwise, you're a fucking hot shyster.
You're a phony.
Yeah.
And the magician is the one that says...
You're fucking...
The magician is the one, he says he always knows the answer. The guy that's saying, I won't charge you, and I don't know what's going to happen... that is a guy you can be like,
You're an oracle.
okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, especially because the fact that he didn't charge also, once you start charging, then
Then you have an expectation to deliver.
yes,
And so then you will-
but
you will
also
conform-
you're actually taking something from someone in order to do that thing. When you are just offering quote unquote free advice, that to me is very different than taking someone's money to tell them a thing.
Well, and
I think in fairness, you are buying the privilege to fail. I think that is what you're doing by because
Maybe,
by
but
what?
that's even a level.
not-
That's even a level
not
deeper.
charging.
That's even a level deeper than I even imagined.
think-
It's just someone saying, "Hey,
think about how mad people can get when you don't give them the answers they want.
And yeah, right, when you go to see a psychic and you pay them money, there's all of a sudden an expectation for
Your wildest dreams.
But if you don't charge, then
you have the freedom to say
and then they can interpret that however
right,
they want.
right, which
yeah,
they're
but they
gonna
can-
anyway.
But they certainly can't be mad.
Well, they
If you-
shouldn't be
if you-
because you actually used your time.
right,
Right.
totally.
And I think that is it's almost not it's not a grift
Right.
because it's just a
Do you have a further addendum, Aaron?
He predicted he had some writings on the Essenes, which were the Jewish proto-Christian sect that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls before they were discovered.
That's fucking nice, man.
And some of this stuff kind of had some coincidence there. He had some stuff about stuff of Atlantis being discovered in the Bahamas, and people say that might have been the Bimini Road out there. He had a lot of misses.
Did he have qualms about guys who tried to make money off of him
No, off him?
or try to use him to make money?
No, because sometimes he kind of did it. He was just like, all right, there might be oil over there. I don't fucking know.
Right.
There's a few times where he had some, prospectors or things like that.
Well, he's got like 3 kids or something.
He had 3
too.
kids, and like one of them died, and from like medical shit that he either like
And
Weren't-
Gertrude.
they weren't walking
his
enough.
wife was like unwilling to let him throw a prescription on it.
Oh no!
After the
Gertrude got
iodine?
involved and stopped his medicine.
And I think he didn't want to do it either.
Damn, that's rough, bro.
Yeah.
And the kid died.
Yeah.
So his subconscious self prescribed the medicine. His conscious self and his wife both
Like, let's
denied
not
it.
do it. Well, or not. They wouldn't even let him go into the trance to ask.
They didn't want sleepy fucking Jim in the room.
They didn't want Sleepy Ed to give a. So they would. They just didn't. They just cut it right off.
Bro, that is amazing.
Yeah, and then the one that they did apparently got his eyesight back.
You can only imagine, like in both of those
God
instances,
damn,
that
that's
week, the 1 week in both of those instances after that has happened, like his
Quiet
the
at a dinner
personality
table.
of his predictions completely was different. Like very cocky or like very
He'd go to
acidic.
sleep and be like,
What did we tell you? We told you to put the poultice on the child.
Sleepy Ed is supreme.
You stupid fucking bitch.
Your daughter needs a Sibian in her room.
You should have been listening to your husband the whole time.
He keeps talking about my husband.
You
Talking
should
about
suck-
me, I'm Ed.
You should suck his dick a lot more. That's
I was
just
asking
our
about this
opinion.
poultice I've been eating
Suck
for
the
a week.
yeah, man. There's something we could talk about forever in terms of remote viewing. I did want to get into. I was gonna do a remote viewing thing, with the CIA, but this one took precedent, and maybe I'll get into the
Well, it's kind of essential
On a Patreon,
setup.
you're going to go back to this remote viewing thing on a Patreon?
Dude, I might even do it for a fucking regular because it was a serious thing that with ties to Scientology, and
Fuck out my face.
bro, it's a real. I mean, they really went for it, and
It went deep.
I went deep, John,
Deep.
too deep.
Deep.
But it was, it's one of those things where there's science that had the progression of science and the scientific
had failed.
and heat is
failed, and heat is
life,
life.
and time kills
Time
because
kills.
it doesn't exist.
Yes. Or it's different.
But it was just one of those things where, like, well, we can't standardize it enough for our purposes, and it's not overwhelming enough to be a total threat. So we'll leave it as it is.
Sick.
Whereas, nuclear science is a science. It's reproducible with enough physical material and the right smart people and enriched uranium. It's both reliable, accurate, deadly, and dangerous from your opponent. And it seemed like with remote viewing that it was not those things.
Jesus.
And so they left it.
Did you about the nuclear bomb? He failed the nuclear bomb?
What?
Are you saying...
No, what I'm saying is, if you think about what the nuclear bomb is, it's magic.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's unleashing a demon out of a bottle.
Right.
And it's an uncontrollable chain reaction that is...
And his remote viewing...
No,
had-
not his. Not his, nothing. What I'm comparing the two sciences.
I see.
What I'm saying is the magic of nuclear explosions and nuclear science was reproducible, weaponizable, and enough of a threat to continue the science of it.
And later the door of Albert Einstein.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Whereas the remote viewing was not reproducible enough,
Right.
not of a weaponizable threat enough, and not dangerous enough of a threat from other
Fun,
parties
frivolous.
to keep investing resources into, or so they say.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Or they're doing it right now.
That is, I think, definitely true. Yeah, the remote viewing stuff was stuff,
Dude, all these documents are out.
Yeah.
You can go look. I mean, we're in an age where the DoD is releasing files and videos on all of their UFO encounters. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And also,
But I mean, UFO doesn't necessarily mean alien. What I'm saying is,
No, I understand. But also they are allowed to redact and pick and choose.
curate
a little
for
bit.
sure.
A little bit.
but they're still doing it.
Which is good.
That's
is at the-
nuts.
Well, it's also
But it's what they're doing. You know what they're doing?
It's the very least we should have from the government.
Oh yeah, what I'm saying is it's nuts that they're doing it. We should, yeah, of course, yes, we should. But here's what they're admitting: we are hopelessly outmatched.
Yes.
And we
It's
always have.
It's an admission of subservience.
We've
Yes.
never been able to.
It's
deal
also
with
the
space.
greatest recruitment drive to the army of all time.
We got a space force.
It is something they will milk to the nth degree, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
Bill Pullman's going to
should.
run for president.
They should.
Yes.
Bill Pullman's going to run for president. Jeff Goldblum's going to be the Secretary of Defense.
Aaron, I would say this is a completely out of nowhere. I didn't know much about this fella
But you heard of his name, right?
beyond
Yeah.
the,
Oh,
beyond the
absolutely.
name. But it was an excellent profile
I hope you like
and really fun and really spurned a lot of very, very good.
I like to think we had a
conversation.
good conversation.
I think we did.
And that is why I chose this one, other than the inspiration from one Linda Collins. Thank you, Linda.
Thanks.
Good looking lady.
Oh, beautiful
Oh, wow.
woman, beautiful
Oh,
woman,
wow.
beautiful
I-
daughters,
Wow.
lovely kids,
My God.
good friends of mine.
They're fine.
These days,
But the mother.
the mother.
Oh,
Oh,
Linda. The kids are for shit.
This was one of those where I was like, his life's fine, but the conversation that his life and antics would spurn were what I was excited to share with you.
Yeah, I mean, there is the thing, of just, you offer it up as a free thing, and it's a whole different ballgame. Because we've had so many of the guys, Matt, like the hucksters and
Sure.
the charlatans where they
yeah.
get off a boat and they're like, oh yeah, look, I can do everything, and like,
Oh no,
it's all
no
bullshit.
boats.
But like the guy going like, I don't know what this is. I'm just like faithfully like religious and
The guy not charging.
I
That's
sleep
another
through
level.
the fucking
yeah,
thing.
and it's like people are doing well off it, so I guess that's maybe designed by God, so I'll keep with it. But also I'm creeped out about it because it seems sort of satanic. Like it's real good stuff.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
old school oracle shit too,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's like, I'm honest, I'm just a medium, a vessel for this other thing coming through me, and it's very vulnerable to submit.
Yeah, and
While
also
you're asleep?
and also
Yeah, you're submitting to this thing, and you
Someone
don't
could hit you with a bat.
poke you with needles.
Yeah.
But the guys, that are trusting it are ones that are going like, all right, well, I'm devout. I guess I trust myself enough, stuff.
Yeah.
But that was also the thing that, just having recently rewatched Exorcism of Emily Rose, they were saying once she went to college and she was away from like her family, they were like, she was like a spiritual like open wound in like a new environment and like
Open for infection.
yeah, like hyper devout
No iodine?
and super good person, but just like didn't know how to guard herself
Right.
again.
She had no spiritual immune.
Yes,
system.
against bad shit. So it was like, you know, almost like the more of a devout believer you are in goodness, the more easy you can be suckered into bullshit. It was like that kind of thing.
Certainly.
And yeah, I do think there's people that are like that.
Yeah. There's people that are hypersensitive.
Yeah.
In multiple ways.
Yes.
And we still haven't figured out a lot of what that means or what the mechanisms are, or
Yes.
it's had a lot of names or a lot of.
But we will on the next
It
page.
has
We'll
had a
figure it
lot
out.
of names over a long time.
And its name is Legion, for we are many.
Yeah. Folks, I loved this episode. I'm going to say goodnight. My name is John Fahey.
And mine,
Name is Legion.
Aaron Pita.
That percent.
Good night, everybody. We love you.
Scarpins Avenue.